read?
Absolutely. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Board of Trustees of the Village of New Paltz on August 28, 2013 at 7:30 p.m. A public hearing regarding the adoption of a local law reorganizing the Environmental Policy Board.
Okay. First of all, if anyone has any comments on it, great, but otherwise I just want to follow up. We did not see the final version of the local law in time for us to be comfortable with adopting it. So basically the protocol in this situation would be to keep the public hearing open, which means it just gets bumped to the next meeting and the next meeting if we have to. So until we have the final draft in front of us, it's an open public hearing.
And may I comment on that too, just so the public is aware? There were significant revisions proposed by the board on a paragraph by paragraph basis to the last version that was carefully reviewed at the July 24th meeting. So it required revision, but at that same meeting, the board decided to put this on the agenda for public hearing. I actually think that that's a good practice in the sense that it allows the board at the early stages, while the law itself is still being crafted, to have the same kind of input. And as the deputy mayor has said, once the board is comfortable with the version they received, and it may change still based on comments from the public and their own comments, then it has to be in that final form for at least 8 days before it can be adopted. So again, there's nothing sort of out of sequence about this process. I actually think it's an excellent process to involve the board at the earliest point.
Okay.
Okay, so would you like to make the motion to hold open?
Yes,
or,
I would
or
like.
you might want to, in case anybody has comments.
I think there are other comments waiting to be made.
Deputy Mayor, would you like to make the motion to
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to hold the public hearing open.
hold September 11th?
11th, yes.
And would someone...
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now on to the next local law regarding the extension for the interim zoning law. If you could read that, Katie, and I'm going to grab some water.
Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Board of Trustees of the Village of New Paltz on August 28, 2013, immediately following the first public hearing regarding the adoption of a local law regarding the extension for the interim zoning law.
Okay, again, this is another item. We would normally have the comments from the planning board regarding this type of a law, and unfortunately the planning board canceled their last meeting. Therefore, they were not able to make a formal decision to our board. So this is another local law that we are going to hold open. And if anyone from the public has any comment, feel free. Okay, I'll make a motion to hold the public hearing open.
Through
Second?
September 11th.
Through September 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, if we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, very good.
Deputy Mayor, we have 3 known additions to the agenda.
Okay, if you could name them.
Trustee Rocco would like to add a discussion about the DEP contract.
Okay.
At the board's purview, you may want to add the executive session because the village attorney is here.
Yes, we will add an executive session.
And the email that was received yesterday afternoon regarding the blood drive for SUNY New Paltz and allowing the spaces to be blocked off near Chief Bank of New York.
Yes. Have both of you seen that?
I saw that,
You
yeah.
saw that. Did you see that,
Yes, I
Tom?
did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we add it to the consent agenda?
I would say we may as well, unless Tom has any objection to that.
I don't have any, well, the only question I have is that these are the same parking places as the handicapped access,
Which haven't been.
which have not yet
Have
been
not been,
designated?
yeah.
No.
Okay.
We haven't had enough time from the time that it was
That's-
filed with the
I
Secretary of
understand.
State.
Okay,
Um,
so we'll,
And I guess the only thing I have in terms of, sorry, the
No, go ahead.
consent agenda, yeah. In terms of the discussion on parking meters, is that I want to make sure that everybody has seen the amendment that Sally sent around. I know you responded to it, but it was, the one we responded to was not the one where she had the attachment.
Right.
She
And I-
sent that in a follow-up email, right?
She said, yeah, forgot to attach, and it was an amendment. Maybe I should just mention this now before everybody speaks.
Yeah.
The amendment to the parking laws that were just changed. We had an emergency meeting Friday to bag the meters on North Front Street to allow for parking to not just be limited to 1 hour, and we are going to be changing, well, provided that we all vote in favor of this. So maybe I shouldn't speak too soon, but I'm sure that we will. We'll be changing, the rates are going to be reduced again, and the 2 hour will be reinstated everywhere except for on Main Street. Main Street, we want to, because the whole point of it was to increase turnover, so Main Street, we still would like to have turnover on. But just so everybody knows, because I'm sure you're all here to speak to that based on, well, maybe not you two, but based on the familiar faces I see and the many emails we got, we're sorry. We made a mistake, and we're going to correct it tonight.
Okay.
But anyway,
Reduced to what it used to be?
it'll be 2 hours, and we had increased it. We had increased it more than it'll be. I'd have to pull it up to tell you specific numbers, but it'll be much of what it used to be. We're going to still increase the rates a little bit though. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that we can. That's
yes,
what
very
we're going to
good.
be discussing regarding
Okay,
parking meters.
I'd like to approve the agenda.
Consent agenda. I had questions about, or not questions. I wanted to remove number 5 from the consent agenda, just because I want us to make sure. Sally had sent an email about not to
Yes,
exceed,
okay.
and I think that would be smart to protect the village
Sure.
with. So,
Before we get to the consent, you just want to approve the actual agenda, though?
Yes.
Okay.
okay.
So that's fine with your amendment to pull that into, so we'll make that item number 10.
Okay.
Is there a second to
Second.
approve the?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, okay, the first item on our regular agenda after public comment will be the discussion on the parking meters. And I just want to fill everyone in on a situation which I think our board members may not be aware of. Being that the meters are digital, the company that we get the meters from, in order for us to make any changes, there is a device which they program, which then allows our meters to be individually programmed. So someone from the DPW gets this device that gets sent to us, and they individually go to each meter to make those changes. Right now, the way that the machine is formatted, there are only 2 changes without us returning the machine, paying to get reprogrammed again. It is now set to either do a 1 hour limit or a 4 hour limit, because we were not planning on making any changes to a 2 hour limit because most everything was. And I just also want to say these decisions were made last October by the former board, and as David know, I was very much unaware of them when he came into one of our local businesses and had a letter. So the reason
Actually,
why
the decision was made in April, but it was first presented last October.
So, and essentially, the reason why the changes were being enacted now is because there is an expense associated with making the changes, which were part of this year's budget. So, and I think Ariana can also speak to a little bit of the process that they went through at the time in order to approve the changes. But that's just, just a little bit of technical issue right now, which we have to talk through, is getting around using this device, which can now only change to an hour or 4. So, yeah, for the temporary.
Do we want to take public comment, and then I can
Absolutely.
speak to some of the other things?
Sure.
Can I just get a clarification before?
Yes.
Am I hearing that you're rolling back either the time limits and/or the fees everywhere in the core business district except for the 2 blocks of Main Street?
I'm
That
gonna
is
pull
Church
up-
Street and 32 as
Okay,
well?
Ariana's gonna pull
I'm
that up.
pulling up this right now.
Yeah.
So the proposed, what it currently reads, and this is what it had been changed to, is that the parking meter fees for all meters except as otherwise designated herein shall be 50 cents per hour with a maximum of 4 hours, notwithstanding the foregoing. Parking meter fees in the core business area meters shall be 50 cents per 30 minutes with a maximum of 60 minutes. Parking meters at Village Hall, this lot right around here, municipal lot, as well, shall be metered at 50 cents per hour with no maximum, and that all meters in the core business area will be bagged with no meter fees required from December 11th to December 25th to support local business holiday shopping. And what we're proposing to amend this section to is, it's a little bit longer, so bear with me. The parking meter fees for all meters except as otherwise designated herein shall be 50 cents per hour with a maximum of 4 hours, notwithstanding the foregoing parking meter fees in core business areas shall be 1. 50 cents per 30 minutes with a maximum of 60 minutes on Main Street between Prospect Street and Huguenot Street. 50 cents per 60 minutes with a maximum of 120 minutes, 2 hours, on North Front Street between Main and North Chestnut, North Chestnut Street between Main and North Front Street, and Academy Street between Chestnut and Church Street. So basically that triangle area that is Church, North Front, Academy, and yeah. And Chestnut. And Church Street between Main and North Front Street. And then the same thing about the parking meters at Village Hall. There will still be no maximum with 50 cents per hour. So that's what we're looking at tonight, just so everybody knows. But with what Rebecca just said about, I knew that there needed to be a device. I just didn't know what it was set for at present. So I guess those are our options: is 1 hour or 4 hours.
What
Yes.
about the parking lot where they have the machine? What's that gonna
Can we open it to public comment?
Yeah, we are.
That is, well, because that's not a code change, we could act to make that 4 hours now, which is what the original parking plan had called for.
be? I mean, how much is it gonna be?
50 cents an hour. But do you want to open up to public comment
Yes.
now that everybody has heard what is
Yes. Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, just one clarification. How much will it be for the triangle area? You said 2 hours.
it would be
proposal
50 cents per 60 minutes.
For 60, okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I know the Transportation Implementation Committee had seen this, and they did say to us, this is to speak to you, Mark, that the idea of changing it on North Front Street to 1 hour, they thought it was forget the word that was used, but it wasn't a good idea, basically. And I had brought that up to the village board at the time, and we just didn't change it. So, okay, but Mark.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Mark Sherman. I live in town of New Paltz. I'm happy to hear that it isn't quite what I thought it was, but I have to tell you that this, I wouldn't say it ruined my weekend, but it certainly didn't help it. My wife and I were taking a very rare weekend away, not to visit grandchildren, just to be the two of us. And we were in Manchester Center, Vermont, which is really a great place. I mean, I've been there. It was then that she told me that she had just been on North Front Street to go into the bakery, which she frequents often, as I do, and it was 25 cents for, I mean, she couldn't believe it. She said it was ridiculous, and I got very upset, because I knew there were changes coming, and I thought, oh, this is great, especially being in Manchester Center, where it's free parking on the street, and Manchester says to you when you come, we're welcoming you. And New Paltz, unfortunately, doesn't do that as much, and this whole deal doesn't do it. I am pleased that it's going back, to what had happened. I'm not happy about the increase in fees, but I have to say, and I've said this right from the start when our committee saw this plan, I find it very hard to follow. It's very lengthy. It's not clear. I don't even know what the core business district is. There are no maps, and it is very hard to follow. And it's becoming obvious that when people hear about it, which they should be finding out about before anything even happens, it should be widely publicized. Word gets out. I'm very happy I'm not the only one, because I am in Vermont, and I'm often the only one protesting things. and I figured I'll be the only one again. Then I ran into David and I realized I'm not the only one, and now it's not just even the two of us. I really feel, I mean, there's a whole lot in the, the main thing I was going to talk about is the time, and I think that's really great. Although I must admit, I parked on North Chestnut, which I thought had been, 2 hours, and there were little things across every meter pretty much saying now it's, so I figured, okay, I've only got 1 hour now. You're saying that's going to go back?
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's all good. I can't talk about the whole plan, but I have to say that this stuff should be made as widely publicized as possible, and to really think about how, people come into this village not just from 3 blocks away. They come in, I'm only 2 miles away. There are people who come from as far away as the town of Lloyd. There are people who come from as far away as Walden. There are people who actually come from New York to our little town. There might even be people coming from Vermont, perhaps even Manchester Center. I think we should be welcoming, and we should, and I'll tell you, I'm a psychologist, behavioral psychologist, and when I hear things done that don't go along with psychology, the analogy I have is like a plumber who comes to a house where everything's screwed up with the pipes and says, what's with these people? They're not plumbers. And this is my field. Make things harder for people and they'll do what's easier. Everyone knows there are places where you can park without having to pay anything, and why not go there? And I love this village. I love the Main Street area, the bakery. But I'm just human, and anything that makes it harder is going to get people like me to say, well, it's just easier to go over here, which includes the malls. I mean, so I just think, again, there's a whole lot. I tried to go through the whole, but my printer isn't very good. I just have to get a new one. I try to print out the whole thing. There's stuff about decals. There's stuff about 12-hour parking on Prospect Street. There was this whole thing about alternate side parking. I'm just urging you to please try to make things public, and I would suggest, not me, I've done too much and I do too much, to get some, although I consider it, to get some person from outside the village, some person who doesn't live in the village, who will say, I think that could be a problem, because that way, and we all one community, Water Street Market, which is great. I was on the town board when that whole thing got going. We had an economic development group. It wasn't the town, the village. It was like, what are we going to do? And that thing's turned out to be great. So anyway, and thank you so much. Let me end with something very positive for going back to the other thing about longer parking places like good bakeries. Thank you.
Sure. People are putting up their hands here and there. If it's okay with everyone, can we, since we've sort of started on this side of the room, can we move across the room? Would that be a problem for anyone?
Row by row?
Row by row, or
Okay.
somehow, if that's okay. Just, Erin, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question not related to parking. Is the village board considering reinstating the planner?
It's a personnel issue. We're going to be discussing it in the executive section.
Okay.
Okay. Back here?
Well, my name's Rich Gottlieb, and I own Rock and Snow, and I'm half a resident of New Paltz, half a resident of Highland. I own other property at the parking lot. I'm gonna have to buy some black leather boots to enforce parking there because of all of this. But I'm not talking to you as a business owner or even as a resident. I'm going along with Mr. Sherman. And I've had discussions with Ariana. In the years that I've been here since the early 80s. Minnewaska State Park happened. It's pretty much like doubled in size. The Mohawk Preserve has grown. It's coming to town. My business has doubled. I feel like this is the Depression, and we're opening up the pantry, and everybody's trying hard, but there's only 10 beans in there, and there are limit to how many recipes you're going to get out of it. You're trying to do best practice, but the truth is, I'd rather hear, I don't even care that much about the parking. What I care about is that we have future plans to try to build a parking garage, which is not counter to it being a walking community. I don't understand why there's been, it's one thing, we've done have the money, or they're not doing parking anymore, you can't raise the money, but then I hear you can if it's part of a village hall project, where you're building a building, you can add additional parking. If you're not thinking toward that future, if we're not extending our hand toward the future that is here already and is only going to increase, you're just going to be divvying up those 10 beans in the closet, and which is, you know, you're looking for best practice, and I really respect that. It's important that you do best practice. But if you don't have more plans in the works to really meet the future halfway or the present halfway, it's going to be a failure no matter how well you try to plan it. I mean, the psychology of it is super important. I mean, we don't have the Chamber of Commerce isn't downtown. Any town like this you go to, not only is the parking usually free, but there's usually public bathrooms, as well as, you know, a Chamber of Commerce. It's really like an information center and a museum. I know that there's a committee now, they're working on all this signage about all this Huguenot neighborhood. If there was a big garage and just good signage to where the parking was, you wouldn't need to know where all these things are. You'd be in the town, you'd go to a merchant, or there'd be one of those big, beautiful signs that says you are here, and maybe pictures around the border of Huguenot houses and this and that, and people would find it. But they're not going to find it if they drive through or avoid the town altogether and the village. So I feel like talking about this in specificity about the meters and this and that, it reminds me a little of the fighting that goes on with school budgets, where people that no longer, when their kids are grown up, they don't want to pay, and you know, it's like we're looking at these little things and we're trying to tear them apart, but there's a really big picture here, an important one. And just to top the whole thing is I feel like it's a sad thing, but I feel like, and this is not a thing to blame, but there is a problem that occurs in many situations, families, all of them, where, let's say you have a lot of money in a family, that can be a real problem. And this village and this town has a lot of money. It has all these incredible resources out there that draw people. And almost no matter what you do, it's still going to draw a lot of people, no matter how you restrict it and this and that. So I feel like it's a shame that we have so many resources, because we can screw it up so badly and it still ends up succeeding. But wouldn't it be nice if, again, we figured out ways to complement it and prosper, and not just as businesses, but as a community? You know, why didn't we get a theater downtown? Was it just because residents on one street complained? It was because we weren't ready for it. We didn't have the parking and that kind of infrastructure to make it happen. You know, why is, this is way beyond your scope, but why is the Wallkill a river that you almost don't even want to, you're taking risks just to put a boat in it? Why? You know, I'm not saying it has to be pristine, but if we had best practices and we all worked on best practices, you know, it might be a little polluted, but not so much that you couldn't fall off out of your canoe and feel like you needed to go to the doctor.
Tetanus shots.
So I'm just asking a lot of whys, and I'm not, you know, I'm not laying this on you.
No, that's great.
But I'm just saying we gotta see a little bigger than this. And that's it. Thank you for all that time. It's a lot of time. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on this side? Public comment, it can be anything, it doesn't have to be parking.
So I am going to return to parking.
Sure.
First of all, I applaud the relaxing of the time limits, but I would also caution that you not think that the rise in the parking meter rates would be without consequence.
I agree.
I happened to notice today, and granted, I guess these were the old rates that were still in effect, but just, I was on Lower Main Street at 215 today, and between Wirtz Avenue and the downtown light, there are 11 parking spots, 2 of which were being used, 9 of which were not being used. And on Route 32 between Pegasus and the and Mobile Station, 9 out of 10 spots were not being used. Every one of those spots that's not being used is a customer that's not shopping downtown. And while I applaud the relaxation of the times, I don't know that will address a substantial part of what I think a lot of people are here for tonight, but not necessarily all of it.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else over here in the back? And also, Tom thankfully just pointed out that if you could all state your names, that would also be helpful, just because not everyone knows each other in the room.
Mark Rosen.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Russo, resident of the town of New Falls. And I have a few comments about the parking meter situation as well. And I want to draw attention to the process aspect of it. So somehow, okay, it's great to say, okay, we made a mistake and to revisit the situation. But it's also very valuable to go and look and say, how did this happen? And how do we not do this in the future? The thing that struck me the most is the 400% increase. Now, rates, generally, you don't see 400% increases on anything. You see, I remember the Mid-Hudson Bridge going up at one point from a quarter to 50 cents. That was 100% increase. And after that, it went up incrementally. Stamps go up incrementally. The thruway goes up incrementally. And it's very rare that something jumps 400. I mean, that creates a shock and a crisis. And far better, it seems to me, when you're dealing in a public situation, is to try to move things up incrementally and see what happens. So that was first. It was so obviously wrong to me that I don't know how that decision was passed by those that passed this these changes. I want to also echo what Mark Sherman said in terms of thinking, the attitude of being welcoming and thinking how that plays out, and in terms of how people are going to feel when they have to fork over a lot more money for a parking meter, and also the sense that they may not want to put in as much, and therefore they're less likely to browse around, and they might go to their one shop that they were intending to, but they won't go to the next one or down the block, and they may not put enough in to go down 3 blocks, but at the same time, they won't want to get back in their car and drive to another meter, because now they're going to have to load that meter. So it introduces problems that I think that if more discussion happened with the shopkeepers on the respective blocks, that some of these things would have been considered. And it strikes me as that very few people were in this group that advised, that were shop owners and advised the decision. I know that Ms. Cohen was one of them, and they own their own lot. So how much perspective is she going to have? And in fact, from my point of view, she has a lot that it would be wonderful if they reconsidered their position in terms of the way that lot is shared. Along the same line, I've been in Church Street, North Front Street area where there's no parking, and then you have the library, and it's practically empty. And there's the signs that say, this parking is only for the library, and it would be towed if you park here. And I don't remember ever seeing the library parking lot full. Now the library is funded by the town to the extent of $320,000 a year, and I know they're looking for an increase there. And I certainly want to get on the side of bashing libraries. I love the library, but I do not think it needs all that parking. And most of the time, most libraries I go to, there's none of that. I mean, the Rosendale Library, parking, you can park there. And most libraries I can think of, you can just pull in and park in the lot. Even if you're not going to the library, it's sort of a community feel. Here, it's the opposite, and it's another sign of like, you're not welcome here. I can't just imagine what a tourist or, someone coming from far away looking for a spot and says, what's all that? Oh, I can't park there, it's the libraries. I would encourage the village trustees to talk with the town board and see if something can be worked out with the library by which some of the money that is the taxpayers are funding to the library, there's some exchange for parking spots. I think that the 50 cents an hour is a rollback of half. So we're increasing the rate by 100% now. Is that right? We're not going up 4 times. We're just doubling it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
We don't
I
have the
still question that
final
and whether
version,
that is
so.
a good move, and I think that's already been stated by Mark Rosen, that kind of point of view. It seems to me that maybe things were working fine with, I don't quite know why we want to charge more. If it's create more parking, then maybe we should look at other ways to do that. Thanks.
I'm kind of in the middle, so I'm between two houses.
Okay.
My name's Joe Margaret Manor, I live in the village of New Paltz, and I teach planning at SUNY New Paltz. And 27 years ago, we started a joint master plan, by the way. So that's kind of deja vu all over again. But anyway, I was flabbergasted when I saw the 400% increase. So I called the Chamber of Commerce a couple of weeks ago, and they said they'd heard nothing about this and they were not concerned with that. So obviously, people have heard about it and experienced it since then. I second everything that Mark said, which is strange because we've been on the other side of so many issues. And also what you said, we're discouraging tourism, we're undermining our businesses, and we're also charging parents more money to allow their children to play on the playground. So it's hurting many different sectors of the community in terms of how much more, in terms of quarters, they'll have to dispense into those machines. I do respect the fact that you're prepared to go back on this to a certain extent, but as Mark said, so many communities that really welcome tourists have free parking, much better signage for the tourists, and really welcome the tourists to their community. And we're not giving the right message. Instead of welcome to New Paltz, it's keep moving, or just stay very quickly, or eat and get really bad indigestion. Because you're going to be out of there in 30 minutes or less. That's what happened to me. I brought my granddaughter. I said, we better eat really fast in PG's because we're going to run out of time in an hour. Thank you for backing off a little bit. But let me make a broader comment, and that current plan that this comes from is an incredibly confused document that's all over the place, and it needs to be completely revisited. So if you could please go back, and there's some things in there that are completely nutty, to be very frank.
All right, can I just say something? Tom and I were not on the board at the time when all this came up. I feel bad for Ariana because
Don't
she
feel
was,
bad, I can
but,
take
you
it.
know,
I've got thick skin. Everyone here who
Right.
knows me knows I can take it.
At the same time, I don't even, I want to go straight back to the drawing board.
Author, so.
Right, yes. I would actually, my preference would be to go straight back to the drawing board, not even necessarily looking at everything here. And I also.
All you have here is a cannon, not snakes.
Yes, I also would prefer to go back to the original price.
Right.
Not just, the hours, but the price as well. So that's my individual preference.
Thank you.
So do we want to move through here? Why don't we go through the middle if you don't mind, then make our way over.
David Santner, I own the Bakery. First, I again want to say how much we appreciate that you're being flexible, and especially this last comment, because I think that's really what it will take. Since everyone's already talked about the money and the hours, although I'll also say I think it should go back to where it was, because it worked, and because I think the only purpose of meters in the village is to avoid a situation where all the people who live in all the apartments above are going to park for 24 hours straight. And I think anything that eliminates that, the goal becomes the opposite. Once they're gone, everything that we as business owners do is trying to attract customers and get them to stay as long as possible. I want, Rich's customers to come and eat in the bakery. He wants Mike's customers to come and shop. And, we want people to stay 4, 5, 6 hours if we could. There's nothing better. So given that, I think I want to talk about a couple of other things in the plan that I have some trouble with and a couple that I kind of like. Because I never read the plan until yesterday, because none of us were really aware of it. But one of the things it talks about is alternate side of the street parking on some of the side streets.
That was taken out.
It was taken out?
Yeah, that was taken out because of people who came out during the public comment and public hearing, and Mark knows, he was there, he was one of them, and so we removed that completely.
Great.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. The other thing I talked about was meters on Church Street up to Orchard Heights. And North Front Street right now is one of the parts of the village that I think really, really works very well. And one of the reasons it works well is we have a real balance of paid parking where people move and free parking that's not too far away, that people who do want to avoid the lot, the meter could do it. Employees do have a place to park. And as soon as we start squeezing people there, you're going to start getting employees parking in front of the houses further down the street, and you're going to hear from them, and then they'll be asking for alternate side of the street parking and things. So I really think it works, it's good enough. I don't think you should mess with it.
Okay.
So I hate to see those metered. The other thing about metering is, even though it gets people moving, it usually cuts the amount of parking in half. Because when you have a lot of curb cuts and stuff, suddenly a spot that fits 3 cars every day becomes 2 spots because there are regulations about how big they can be. And in fact, on my previous letter, the first letter I wrote about this was because on North Front Street, and I've actually talked to the 3 different mayors about this, but the spots are just too big. And it just came about because there are various curb cuts that make it 2 inches short of 3, so you make it 2. And I just think someone has to go through there with some common sense and put those spots back. And the other thing on North Front Street is there used to be parking from the corner all the way down. And I mean, you don't even hit a parking spot until you're at Handmade. And I just don't understand why every year a few more spots disappear, including one that you're talking about this year. I understand the bus may have complained at some point because some bus driver felt he almost hit something, I don't know. But it seems for a private company to be able to get 7 or 8 or 10 spots removed just so that the buses could have to slow down a little bit doesn't seem right.
I think there's an official, I'm trying to, because I know where you're talking about, and I think there's an official, unloading zone there. And I didn't recall us taking away any parking in that spot.
I'm not sure.
Okay, I don't think that was part of this plan because it was already an unloading
No,
zone.
it wasn't part of this plan, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
In terms of some good things I saw on that plan, one was it mentioned what Michael just talked about, metering the parking lot in the library. And I had seen that. I actually it just happened today that someone on the board of the library stopped in today asking for signatures for asking the town for more money, but I got to talking to him, and he at least thought it was worth pursuing. As a board member, he wasn't saying yes, go do it, but he invited me to come to a board meeting, and I think maybe I'd love to go along with somebody from the village.
I was going to say I would love to go with you.
And while we're at it, I think a similar situation exists at the synagogue park. It irks me so much that every day I pass the synagogue parking lot, and if there's ever more than 2 cars, I'd be flabbergasted.
The Jewish Community Center?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, if someone were to propose to them that the village take over maintenance in exchange, and maybe some money in exchange for that back lot being municipal, it might go over.
I mean, considering that is part of the plan proposed to do that with Bobby Downs and the Oasis parking lot, we're obviously, maybe I shouldn't say we since they didn't vote on this plan, but the village board generally is looking to do that type of thing to increase the parking that we manage that is a municipal lot, along with signage. But that was one of the things that we realized, obviously, we did this in terms of the budget and went through and said, okay, well, we can do these things without any money. We can budget for these things in next year, and then these other things are long term. And we should have said, these two things should be coupled together, which is something like what we've done now, along with signage and these other parking lots being put in place at the same time. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20, and that's why we're doing what we're doing now. But I'm also open to other suggestions. We don't necessarily have to do this, you know.
I agree.
And the last
I
thing
mean-
I'd say is all of us in the village who have businesses would be very, very thrilled and happy to be part of the committees that you're meeting.
Okay.
Mike and I were on a previous committee. We've all worked hard on this, and we would very much like to participate.
Okay. I want to make just a couple comments while I remember this. Well, you and I had a quick little discussion, but one of the things that I'd also like to look at is compact car spaces, which a lot of communities do, and North Front Street really needs to be revisited. I think, the entire length, and that is a consideration that we could look at. And also, we had also, in our little talk, one thing that I've seen in many communities is diagonal parking, where you basically have parking on one side of the street and you back into the spot and then go straight out of, I don't remember, I think in San Diego, I believe it was. But that's another thing. It's a matter of looking at the width, the space, and measuring to see what is the most, we can do with that amount of space. So it's,
And North Front Street is probably wide enough that we could do that.
right, yeah. Okay.
Hi, my name is Clement Law. I'm a owner of Front Goods, and I bought a business 3 years ago. And prior to that, I was a tourist for about 10 years from New York City. And I feel like one of the main issue is really parking signs. Signs for parking. I know you're working on it right now, but I felt like that is probably one of the quickest and easiest. I understand. I read the plan, and it sounds like it takes like $10,000 to make signs, which is kind of, I don't understand why it's that much. But the issue is that as a tourist, a lot of times when I drive from the Thruway, if I don't see any parking on Main Street, I just kept going to Mohawk. And the same, when I came from Mohawk, if I don't see parking on Main Street, I just head to the Thruway. But if there are clearer signs, like most of the towns I've been to, it's always very clear where you can find parking. But the issue is I don't see any signs, so if I don't see any parking, I just kept going. So I hope that is something that you can, find a solution quickly. I feel like that in and itself would help a lot. The second thing is I echo totally what Rich said. Like rather than doing cosmetic changes here and there, if we can think something longer term, because I feel like the village, is growing, but we don't really have the infrastructure or the plans to accommodate. It's almost like we want to grow, we want to attract people, but at the same time we don't want you to come, which is kind of like everything people say about, we are not welcoming tourism. And the third thing I want to mention about is decal parking at the village hall. Like, I don't have a parking for my business, so I need a place to park. And in the past, right now, I've been parking at the village hall, and I know other business owners do that too. And right now, you're trying to implement decal parking, which I think is a good idea, but you're charging $120, if I remember,
$10 a month
to get a decal parking, which I think is kind of expensive because other towns I know, they usually issue maybe 1 or 2 decal parking, either for free or for nominal fee. And at one point you're talking about maybe $30. I think the plan that I saw said $30 per year. But the letter that I received, I believe, is $820. Now, I don't understand why you need to charge that much. I know you're trying to discourage SUNY students from parking there. I know you're trying to discourage employees from parking on Main Street. But if you're charging $120, I don't see why anybody would want want to pay for it. Most of the employees on Main Street are part-timers, earning low wages. I don't think they would sign up for a year, buy a decal for a year and park at the Village Hall. So I hope that you would consider like maybe issuing 1 or 2 parking per business, so that people like me, we have a place to park. It would be ridiculous if I own a business here and I don't have a place to park. So that's all.
My understanding is that it was $30 per quarter, which is then the $140 per year, which is 33 cents a day, which is 0.41 cents per hour in an 8-hour day. So that's significantly less than anyone would pay, even if the parking meters were rolled back to the original amount.
I don't know, I don't remember other towns do that. Like even I used to live in New Jersey, they have, even for resident parking, it was really inexpensive. I don't remember the exact amount, probably like $30, $40 a year. And for businesses, it's either free or something really low. So even though I get the math, 120 is very little per day, but still, I think it's a lot of money. And I don't know why, when I talk to other people, like Kurt and other people, they claim that it's not to make money. But then why do we have to charge that much?
Can I just put in my 2 cents?
Yeah.
I do want to say that I just came back from vacation, and I came back from what the Travel Channel rates as one of the #1 family destinations in the country. And where I was, not only is it nearly impossible to find parking, but you pay $25 for an 8-hour time period to park. So I, with all due respect, it's not every place in the country has practically nothing for parking.
Where did you go?
Ocean City, New Jersey.
Okay. Anyone else in the middle section here? Go ahead. We'll go back up to the front here.
Thank you. My name is Peter Faggiola. I'm the owner of Scrutiny Indian Restaurant at 5 Church Street. I'd like to thank you for giving me a chance to speak and thank my neighbors and my fellow business owners of the village for all the great comments. And I second everything that they have just said. So I'll just keep it brief because a lot of what I was wanting to say was already said. But I think it's important that I say something. One, in regards to the time of year that this particular change took place, and thank you for considering the 4 hours as opposed to the 1 hour change since you have a choice. And that is, this is the time where we make our money for the whole year. And being a small restaurant, I really count on this time of year to make the money for the year. So we have a lot of people come from the city, from Jersey, who say they come up here to do the various activities, but they like to come to our restaurant this time of year. So I don't want to scare them away into parking, and I think it's really important that we encourage that on a regular basis, yearly, throughout the whole year, to encourage, like everyone's been saying, people to come and feel welcome. That being said, the next issue with Church Street and the possible metering of Church Street from the north front the other way, opposite my restaurant, where I now park, and I encourage my employees to park, it's free. Please don't put meters there. I just think it's completely unrealistic. It's hard. I have a hard enough time. I work 6-7 days a week, every single day, parking down that street in the morning. I used to park my motorcycle on Academy Street because there was plenty of room across from Barnaby's, but you took away a parking spot there and put meters. So I was not able to park my motorcycle between 2 cars there anymore, so I lost that spot. So that street is very tight there. I also ride my bicycle in town to town from Gardner as much as I can to help with take it easy on that driving and the parking. But I personally, as a business owner, rely on that parking spot. So does my wife down Church Street. said, again, I agree with everything that everyone said, and I appreciate that people in the town and on the board and everything are looking to these issues and everything, but I would appreciate also a greater attempt on your part to communicate with myself and other businesses, especially myself, about such important issues. I have no excuse. I should have known about this and everything, but I don't read the paper. I come to work every day, my head's in the trenches all day long, all night long. I come home, I wake up, I do the next thing, same thing next day, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. So I really don't like follow this stuff. So you have to come find me. Not that you don't have to, but I appreciate if you try to come find me as a business owner in such a crucial spot. You know, knock on my door, say, listen, by the way, here's this, or just because, like I said, I work a lot of hours, and I would really would have liked to have been on top of all the Sushi Indian restaurant project.
Sure, okay. Ariana has told us that there was some attempt to contact.
This was sent by email, not by myself, so I couldn't, I can't vouch for it myself, but I know that one of the people that had helped to write this plan, who is not a village resident, by the way, lives outside of the village and does work with the Downtown Business Association, sent it to everybody, and she said that she got no responses. So I know that there are many things that come into emails all the time, and there's, like you said, you're not, you don't read the paper. There were 2 articles about it. I know because I was not portrayed so well in one of them, and I had to write an apology letter, but it was okay because I had said what I said. But so there was publication about this, and the plan had been on the website for months, basically. So I don't blame anybody for not going out yourself to find out what's going on, because I think we're all involved in our own lives, and I totally get it. But it's not that no attempt was made or that there was poor process. There just could have been much better process. I could have knocked on your door myself, and I think based on the showing here tonight, in the future I might just do that. So, but thank you. I totally hear what you're saying.
Okay, we'll move back this way.
Yeah, I gotta stand.
Sure. Come on up if you'd like.
It's Mike Smith from the New Paltz Regional Chamber of Commerce, and we've been a little concerned about parking and any other issues affecting business in the village and the town. And we love the area, and we do a lot with calls. Sometimes we don't make the calls. Sorry about that, but it's very important to keep fostering a real good, positive environment for the village, especially with all the transit and traffic comes through to enjoy all the major assets we have in the area. And it just seems to us, and seeing all the communication going back and forth and talking to some of you already, is that it's great to have the kind of semi-rollback in pricing right now, but if you did distinguish with core business, to take that out of the equation eventually sooner than later, because the street, it narrows like a funnel, and it goes down and it's tight, and if you have just a 1-hour cap, get it back to 2 hours regardless of the software company, do something to do that, because you're only creating potential too for slowing up traffic and maybe having potential a little more minor gutter gunners too, because you have a lot of great restaurants and places to shop in and around that core area. So we would suggest really remove that core area, get it back to 2 hours regardless, so that people, whether you're local residents or you're coming out of the area, they don't care. All they know is they're in a place, they got to get out of there. They may have taken that extra hour to conduct more business while they're in that shop. And that's what's really important. And that helps them to come back more and more. And that'll help create more additional funding down the road with more taxes and more income to the village. So we just feel that it's most important to strip away the core, to get to 2 hour, create a committee for about a period of 6 months of people here tonight even to say, look, let's get together, what's number 1, 2, and 3 objectives, and focus on that. So we can really have a good pro-business atmosphere that will get the word around, because it's hard enough to entice business to come here to apply for like a movie theater, like Rich was saying before, and other things, it's a struggle, and it really shouldn't be that. If we kind of have shortcut the process to a committee that's focused on building better steps to make this a much better place to conduct business and encourage people to come and spend their money and for businesses themselves, not go through this headache and aggravation that unfortunately came up. And we know it's been in the minutes, we know it's been publicized, but we found out too in talking to people that a lot of people simply don't read it. And like Ariana was saying, yeah, go door to door, but it's we have to do more of that when an issue comes up. So we use this as an issue to say, but the pricing, let's use that as an example. Hey, we're going to come back to you, notify you, here's the pricing, and we're thinking about maybe not having the court, we're thinking about 2 hours. Let's get together, let's have a meeting and form a committee. That, I don't know, to us would be helpful and be safer to do something like that, because again, the streets are just too narrow in that core district because it is a safety hazard. Even myself, when I come into the meeting tonight, I had another meeting before this, I parked right on the street, cars going back and forth. I don't want to think about putting more quarters in the meter. I just want to be comfortable for a little while. And I think tourists want that experience. And then they'll just welcome and they'll think of New Paltz as something good to keep referring people to come to. That's it. I'm tired. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So, I'm going to go.
Elise, I want to build on Chestnut. So I am thankful everyone's here. I'm going to try not to repeat stuff that's already been said. I do have to comment about the thing that came up with the library parking. When I go to the library, there's like maybe 1 or 2 spots available. The library parking, unless the library's closed, it's very hard sometimes to get a spot in the library. So I would urge you not to look at the library as also parking unless the library is not open, and then then that's a whole different story. I got a couple things. The red bags that were on the meters on the front. I want some red bags. My clients have been pumping quarters into that meter that are across from my business. So what I want to know is when are they going to get changed back? When is this going to happen? You said that the timing was going to be changed back to 2 hours, or that's in the works. When is that going to happen?
Right now, like I stated earlier, the machine that actually resets everything is not programmed to go directly back to the 2-hour limit. We would have to send it back to the company and have them redo the programming in order for us to quickly change back to the 2-hour. And
unless we go to 4 hours.
Exactly. So right now it's public comment. The next item on our agenda is a discussion on parking meters, which is when the board will have a discussion. So during public comment, we're listening to everything that you're saying. During our discussion, we're going to attempt to come up with a good solution. And right now, I feel that immediate solution, because we do have the meter changer in-house. I asked the DPW not to return it just yet, because it's going to take more time for us to come up with whatever we are going to go forward with. So what I'm planning on proposing is that we look at these meters, certainly on North Chestnut, or North Front Street, since we've already gone with the 2-hour bags, look to do them as 4 hours right now until we can get the reprogramming done, and also come up with a whole new plan too. But the immediate fix would be to take what we already have in-house, which is the meter, and change to 4 hours. So we'd certainly look at North Chestnut as well.
They were supposed to be bagged also.
They're not.
So maybe the bags were somehow taken off.
We can make we can do 2 things tonight once we get into our regular board meeting, because like I said, this is public comment. We're really not supposed to be commenting.
Right.
There's one of 2 things that we can actually do tonight as a board, and that's either approve the bagging of North Chestnut or approve the 4-hour for these areas that are a concern right now.
Thank you. The other thing I wanted to, has been said, but I want to reiterate that I really feel that a 100% increase is too much. I'd like to see the meters return to where they were. My clients, we see people for a minimum of an hour, so instead of putting 35 cents a meter, now they have to put in $1.25. And they come several times a week. So that really does add up. And these are people that are supporting us and not paying taxes. So I'd like those meters to be returned back and people don't have to walk around with a roll of quarters. So that was the other thing. The other issue that I have, and since this is talking about parking, I'm going to bring this up now. Last year, Ken Hasbrook and I came before the board because there was a proposal to remove parking spots across from my building, same side as the building. And we were very clear that we needed those spots for parking. We've always had them. We've opened our businesses, so they were there. So a couple of months ago, 4 spots were removed. And that has also caused quite a bit of problems with my business. People who rely on the spots, some people who are elderly, some people who are mildly disabled, don't have, maybe they can't park in a handicap, but I would like to ask the board to consider restoring those spots. One of them went to a handicap spot. There were 2 handicap spots across the street from that. There's no ramp to go to a curb. No handicap person in the right mind would park there. There's the road, who can park there? And the other spots were taken for a bus stop that I completely don't understand because I see people flying down the bus and I've never seen a bus park there and it's covered with a tree anyway. So I would just like to ask the board to please restore those 4 spots because they are really important to our business.
Okay, thank you. Can we go in the middle here? I'm sorry, Ira, they're raising their hands for a little bit. Okay. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
We're right down the street here on Black Hill. What is the parking meter price going to be there? That hasn't been, I didn't hear that.
That hasn't changed.
It's 50 cents for $1. It's $1 an hour.
Right now?
Yes, right now.
They just changed?
A week and a half ago, 2 weeks, and everything else changed. I saw a woman across from my office today pull into a spot. She got out, she looked at the meter, she got in her car, and she drove away.
Okay.
We're going to look at all of it. I seriously, I was a part of a study 8 years ago where we actually we walked up and down the streets and at each hour we wrote down the license plates of different cars that were at different spots. That was when we determined that we would encourage Lower Church Street for employee business owner parking, and that's why all these years that area hasn't been metered, and I prefer to see it that way. And I like you said in your email, for someone who wants to run into Earth Goods to get a thing of eggs, to have $1 put on top of the thing of eggs that you're parking to run in and grab is, little unreasonable. So we're definitely going to go right back to the board with everything.
The original plan, this is, I just looked it up, it said all other meters except long-term meters designated should be configured for 50 cents an hour with a maximum of 4 hours.
So that knows for change, they shouldn't.
Yeah,
I mean,
see, and
this is
such a big surprise to me. It was.
And you can't put anything more than an hour, obviously.
50 cents per hour meters on both. Yeah, all of this is 50 cents per hour.
Pay to come see us, but, we do that for our customers.
Okay.
We tell them, just pull up front, get a quarter. But now we have to have.
And the meters that were removed on North Chestnut, that was part of the plan that Rebecca just spoke to, the transportation and land use plan, because the flow of traffic on Chestnut, the intersection between Chestnut and Main, it just gets backed up so far, and it's really, it just creates more traffic problems, and that's why that was in that 2006 plan, and this parts of that were implemented here.
I mean, yes, there are parking problems on all of them. We could solve all our traffic problems by getting rid of all our parking and all our stores, but the priority shouldn't automatically be traffic wins, parking loses.
Okay.
I also understood that the state changed the light at the corner there, and that really alleviated a lot of the issues of the traffic impact. And And that has been what I've seen, that the traffic is not backing up so much as Pleasanton, not because those 4 spots were removed. So that's why it's
Okay.
So back to her original question, what is the time frame for changing them back? I know you have the machine.
Yes. The time frame, I certainly don't know right now. And it was just with the discussion with the DPW, just so that I know what we can do for the immediate.
Yeah. I mean, we can say effective immediately. Oh, sorry, go say it.
Can we get the bags in the meantime? We're right down here.
We can say effective immediately, and then they'll do it as soon as time allows. You know, I mean, there are things that happen that are out of control, like waterman breaks.
Okay, I'm going to go to Ira and then back to Kathy, and then back.
David's been waiting.
Yeah.
I got a different subject.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Ira.
I was just wondering, have the trustees considered a municipal lot, not like the one that's by Starbucks, but a high-rise, up to the maximum that you're allowed to build here, okay? And you have the width and whatever, it'll take up a lot of parking. It allows you to set parking for 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, or whatever people want by sections, okay? In order not to increase the burden on the homeowners, which are burdened enough because of the business district, you have a special business district assessment, because they're the ones that benefit from the parking, or from the traffic that's created by the parking, or the need for parking. So this way it's like a win-win, if you will. It takes the traffic off of Main Street, gives people a chance to park 4 hours, 2 hours. They want to go to a restaurant, sit down, they can do it. The business owners contribute to the cost of what they're benefiting from.
Right.
And the homeowners don't get any extra, they'll have extra. Then also, all that money from that municipal thing kind of comes into the village to help offset our taxes, which help offset the subsidies that we have to make for the business. To me, it's a win-win situation all the way around, if you have to consider it.
All right, just so you all know, there's some people in the back who've been raising their hands for a while, you were as well, and people in the front can't see them, so I'm just going to go to Kathy. She's been trying for a while.
And Kathy Preston, I own the Treehouse on North Front Street, and I would suggest strongly that if you are faced with the decision of either bagging the meters or turning it to 4 hours and then putting it back to 2 hours, bag them. Because once you have made the change to 4 hours, people are going to get used to the 4 hours.
I agree.
And when you switch back to the 2 hours, you're going to get the torches and pitchforks again. I mean, it's just going to be, I think consistency is key. And in the interest of consistency, I think also having the same rate for any metered spot in the village would be smart. Because shot with our tourists, and they don't know what the parking rates are until they get in their spot, and they're out, digging for change and looking for it and seeing what they're doing. So I think consistency would be key throughout all of them. It gets too confusing with, here it's 4 hours, here it's 2 hours, here it's 1 hour. I think the 1 hour on Main Street is a horrible idea. You have restaurants there, you have yoga studios, you have places where people are going to go and they're going to spend more than an hour, and then they're going to go and they're going to do other things, hopefully, in the village. Anecdotally.
Pay their tickets.
Yeah, anecdotally, I had this lovely couple in the shop the other day. They were visiting her from New Jersey, and the wife was looking around, and the husband was looking around. They're enjoying the shop, and he's like, "Why don't you keep looking around? I'm just going to go feed the meter." And she says, "Yeah, I'll just come with you." And they're gone. And I'm sure that scenario has been played out over and over again over the last 2 weeks in the village, and it's a shame. Because every little scrap of business counts right now.
Absolutely.
In every single piece. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Dave?
Dave Capmo, 27 Grove Street.
My concern is this stream, river, whatever you want to call it, that they're going to put down, coming down right up by Peace Park. I've been trying to get some information on it or get involved in it in some way. I set all the stones for Peace Park out here with a forklift and people using shovels. I assume that the people that are doing this stream thing will have equipment. What my concern is are the placement of stones. I have a big Japanese garden in my house, and I have set the stones for that. And stone setting is very important in a stream setting or any kind of garden setting. If it's done properly, it looks natural and it's wonderful. If it's not done properly, it looks horrible. So I'm an industrial designer, and I'm offering my services free to counsel whoever does the work, because I want to make sure that what I did still looks good compared to what's done coming down the stream, and is totally integrated. So that's what my concern is about, and I would like whoever to let whoever know this. I would like to be involved in it. I don't want any money for it, I just want it to look great. I think what Nick did down here with these large stones is good. I did make a suggestion. I think he felt a little offended, even though I told him what he did look good, was that it needs an addition of a few more smaller stones. And I'd be glad to help, guide where they go. Besides being a designer, I do a lot of sculpture, and there's a whole big thing about grouping and setting stones. And why real Japanese, good Japanese gardens look great. And most of it's because of how the stones are set. That's the most important thing. And then all the planting and everything else is actually secondary. So I would like whoever to let me know when I can get involved. I'd like to see what exists now as far as drawings go. I'm here because you said you were going to approve the bids.
Right.
And I would like to be able to contact whoever the bid is awarded to and offer my services free of charge.
Beautiful.
When I do design work for my business, I get $150 an hour.
So we're getting a bargain.
Thank you for your offer.
Parking is parking. I've been here for 44 years. The parking's been terrible ever since. And I'm just saying that I agree with Ira. And I would never agree with Ira. Right, Ira?
You got it.
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you. Back to the back.
Come to the front, so you're on public access TV on the repeats. Would this board be willing to receive an estimate on what it would cost to have a microphone for the people in the audience so they can be heard?
Yes.
That'd be
I was
fantastic.
making phone calls about that this week.
I'll get you that information by the
Yeah,
next meeting.
if you could work with Katie on that, because she is already working on it.
Oh, great.
But yeah,
And the DPW is actually going to construct a podium for us, but they can't do it until the wintertime hours because there's so many other projects going on. So yes, we would love to. That was one of the projects we're working on this week.
I feel honored being in the room. The engine that pulls this village is present in the room here, so my hat's off to all the business owners. I see you're discussing the environmental policy body tonight, and when that is formed, would you please contact me?
absolutely.
That'd
Yeah,
be fantastic.
We already, believe me, you're on my list.
Okay. And lastly, just as a process thing, I know at the last meeting there were some questions raised looking for clarification on whether there was or not the appearance of a conflict of interest with regard to a couple of trustees in the natural gas vote. So I had sent an email to those trustees and the village attorney just asking if it was possible to clarify that at some point in public. I just want to, whether there is or is not, I just think it should be clarified so nobody has to ask questions about it anymore.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay.
Very quick, I forgot to give you one little point about my high-rise municipal parking. If Wilmerite gets their approval, you're going to have 6 to 700 more cars coming into this village. Maybe in the town land, those students go into the town, they go into the village, that's where the businesses make all their money. And let me tell you something, you think it's bad now, add 700 more cars in and around this area going into the village. I just wanted to add that.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, let's take my back. Yes.
Jeff Logan, owner of Cheese Plate Cheesemonger at Water Street Market. And Ira, with Mike here, Mike, you welcome 700 more cars every day in our community. Personally, I will, Ira. Yeah, I'm not right. That does produce that. So I think my only comment, it's two quick comments. One is I hope parking is not being looked at as a revenue generator by raising the rates. Parking meters were designed originally to keep traffic moving and flowing throughout your businesses at a reasonable rate. Same with $120. I hope no one on board takes it lightly that $120 is not a lot of money. One is businesses typically work very often on 10, maybe 15% profit after everything is said and done. So if you think 120 isn't much, is 1,200 a lot? Is 1,000 a lot? It's a lot of money. So you can see we need every single penny. You've heard that from multiple business owners here. So it's easy to say, oh, $30, that's not much. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, it's a lot. And it takes a lot to generate that money in our businesses in this community. And we only do get that one shot. To Kathy's point, you only get one shot, and that tourist who drives a long way to come here. The same as when you were on vacation down in North City. They only got one shot at you. You're not going to drive back into that town because you saw a cute carpet or a toy that you want to go back down there and get. You get one shot in that store. If they get chased out, they're not going to come back. So we do need to keep it moving. The unintended consequence, and I'm sorry there wasn't more Water Street merchants here, when the rates changed, our lots filled up with more permanent cars very quickly. There's actually, depends how you want to count them, but there's about 3 tiers of parking actually at Water Street Market. One of the tiers is an unpaved lot for which the people that work there park in. Most of the businesses don't open down there until later in the day. We have them arrive a little bit earlier multiple days. That upper lot has been filled every morning when it never used to be for the last 2 weeks. So somehow new cars are coming in. This is previous to school coming in too. So it's not students, it's not new rentals coming in. They're cars that are looking for a place to park. We don't do anything in our parking to chase people out. We already are the default parking for a lot of the rail trail. We see cars come and sit there the whole day. And each one of those spaces has a value to it. So I really hope on top of looking the changing in the rates again, making it more convenient for people to park a little bit longer on Main Street, let's also please invest in signage. Let's give people large signs that can direct them down to the wastewater treatment plant where there is a lot of parking. I know we were here talking about this not that long ago. Let's make that sidewalk passable along Huguenot Street there. The growth on that, I run over this community. The growth on the sidewalk along that part of Huguenot Street does not invite anyone to park down the sewer plant and then walk up. It's almost a scary walk. At night it's dark. During the day there's a lot of trees growing on the sidewalk. Now I don't know whether that's the village's responsibility to cut the trees back. This would be going from Gilliland or heading down this way.
Yeah, it's actually the property owners.
And again, I don't know, but I'm sure that they could be worked with and approached and be more than happy to cut it back, or there's probably a provision to cut it back and then a bill could be put onto their tax bill. But the business owners in this community support everything that you're all trying to do with parking. So, please, what we're doing with parking, please reach out to the community. I also read my emails, as you know, I get a lot of them. But we didn't get any down at Water Street Market about any of the parking changes. And it's not an excuse or anything, but one email to the manager of Water Street will get it out to 14 different businesses right away. Now just having to email one person. So, but I appreciate everyone looking back at it and changing it back, and I look forward to those 600 or 700 cars I wrote.
But according to rumor, they're not new cars. They're not new people, they're just new cars.
Okay, so
I forgot one announcement I wanted to make. New Paltz, the village of New Paltz has sister city in Japan, Nimi. And a week from tomorrow, there'll be 6 people coming from Nimi. 4 nursing students and 2 professors, Kiyoshi Yamaguchi, who is the English professor, brings his students over here almost every year. They did come last year. And a Professor Uno of nursing will be coming. And we will be having some things going on. I just wanted to let everybody know.
Is there a specific event, a welcoming event that you're aware of?
There's a welcoming party on the 5th, next Thursday, at Unison. The bus gets in about 2:05, so after 2:05 to about 3:30. And then we will be, Mike Beck has given us a lunch on Sunday at P&G's, which I think is very nice of him. Has done that in the past. And we'll be taking them around town. You may think this is kind of funny, but we're going to take them to Stop and Shop. Because in Japan, even in the big cities, they don't have anything like Stop and Shop. And they always have to go to Burger King. And we'll give them some pizza and so forth and so on. But we are going to take them on a tour of Main Street, depending on the weather, Saturday or Sunday.
Very good. I'll get in touch and try to, see how we can help
email me. You were on did you get the notice on the email?
I've gotten some notices, but lately my email has been so clogged I can't see anything between the weeds. So.
Kitty has my email.
Okay, yes. Okay, great. Yeah, I'll email you from my village address so that it's a little easier.
Because all of the board members.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mike, did you have something?
Just quickly, Mike Beck, I'm a resident of Gardner, and I don't own a business in Gardner, but I'm sure they wish that they had this problem. I just want to say that I would be in favor of increasing the rate to 50 cents an hour, but that there be no less than 2 hours for the parameter of parking anywhere.
Okay, great, thank you. Paul?
Thank you. My name is Paul Brown. I don't own a business. I don't even have a job. But I am a shopper. And my wife and I live about 3 miles south of the village, so we do drive in. Although I know my neighbors would like it if I ran or walked. But I sometimes do take a rail trail and walk. So we do come to town. We really do try to shop locally. We're customers of all these fine folks. And, so I want to speak for that as a shopper and a person who lives a little far out of the village. I also think that there's a lot of energy in this room, and I'm hopeful that we will look at the parking. I'm saddened that we seem to have lost our planner, because we need a planner to pull together these plans for the future. I also hope that this board will look into the circumstances that seemed rather quick. I was planning to have dinner with the planner to talk about some ideas about signage, about parking, about New York State support for Main Street, our county planning board support for Main Street. I see those Jersey plates, and they better stop for the crosswalk, but we need to educate them. But I was a tourist in Jersey this past weekend, and I was in this wonderful town called Westfield, and I got up purposely, and I took about 50 pictures, and I would love to be able to post them on the village website if we could just put our aspirations for things like signage. We've all traveled, we've been to cities like Ocean City, just a few snapshots, a sign, coordinated signage, parking, festivals. Some cities like Westfield actually have adopted a look and a feel for the village that makes you understand you're in a community, that they care, that street furniture, flowers, it's certainly could be supported by beautification committees, but it takes the will of the government, it takes someone to pull together the plan. So I personally hope we get back to the planner we had, but we need a planner, and I'm encouraged that there may be some joint work on master plans, but nobody ever cried for a new master plan. What I'm hearing tonight is action that can be done in the next year to 2 years about parking. I support that. And I like Mike's idea. I think that's reasonable based on my study when I was chairman of the planning board of great cities. So I come to find out, I get up early to take pictures to show to my friends in New Paltz, and I come across a plaque and it says, Westfield, New Jersey in 2004 was one of the 5 great American Main Street Award winners so far. It's a program in the federal government and state governments awarded by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, Burlington, Iowa, Paso Robles, California, Westfield, New Jersey. So I stumbled into this town. My daughter happens to live there, and it's expensive. But the parking is reasonable because they front feet parking. So if the village and the town are cooperating, what about the high school and what about the college? The school board, those 4 governments or entities, there's lots of parking. These communities have big free parking lots and they have a little bus running around. And it's electric and it's gas or whatever it is. So I hope the energy here tonight, which I support, I will be on the committees with Don and all the other folks I see here, we can drive a stake in the ground and move forward on having a vision for what this village and town can feel and look like. And it will pay for itself, but we'll have to invest at the beginning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
I just, when you notify people, like, how do you get on this email list?
It was through the Downtown Business Association. I didn't even have the email list. I mean, I see a lot of people shaking their heads, but that was what was said.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
It's really important. I think, first of all, that I've been a municipal attorney for 20 years. This board is as activist as any board I've ever seen in trying to make sure that people are aware of what's going on. But it's really important that I be a jerk here and just be careful that the board not commit itself or that there be no expectation that as a municipal entity, these folks can do more than what's required by law in terms of notice. That's not to say that they won't, but it's also not fair to put them in a position of having to do that. I mean, you can call the village clerk and find out what are the official publications of the village. You know that these issues regularly arise, and it's just really important. I mean, it's clear that this is I'm familiar with the community too. This is an extremely knowledgeable, exceptional business community. And the bottom line is you have to pay attention to this stuff. And again, that's not to say that your Downtown Business Association and your Chambers of Commerce and these board members and the clerk won't go out of their way to try to make people aware. But I just feel I have to say there can't be a promise of additional notice, because the fact is every single thing that the board does impacts some group of residents or citizens, and all of them would have a reasonable expectation to the same kind of notice. It's just not fair to them, and it would set up a bad precedent. So I apologize, but there's my...
Thank you. Amen.
Right.
Can I have a quick suggestion for certain issues that impact us? Can you send snail mail instead of email? I think that would be an easier way for us to keep track of what's going on.
The big difficulty with that is that costs money and email is free. and if we
Voluntarily get on a list?
Well,
The Downtown Business Association sort of doesn't really exist anymore. When I was secretary of the DBA, I had a mailing list of 300 to 400 people that came to meetings. I asked for the list the other day, and they sent me a spreadsheet of 25 names. So the list that a lot of people do, I just sat and went through my phone book and on the internet. So if you would like to send me an email, David at ilovethebakery.com. I'm going to be trying to continue this conversation as much as possible.
Thank you, David.
I did want to note that every public hearing we have, and the law that changed this on April either the 10th or the 17th, I'm sorry, right this second, I can't remember, was on the front page of the website. And I have to notice on the front page of the website within 1 week for a public hearing. So if you had a habit of checking every Monday, you would find out if we were having a public hearing.
And it's not just public hearings, the agenda is a public document too, right?
Right,
So
that
anything being discussed at some point prior to the meeting is a public document.
If you go to the village board page, you'll see the agenda.
Villageofnewpaltz.org.
And if you call the clerk's office, we love to send stuff. We'll email you practically anything you want.
Okay.
I'm David Friedman from Gardner Books. Just in terms of informing people about meters specifically, the guy who gives tickets, he's very efficient, and he's great. Anyway, but there'd be no reason why he couldn't have carried around a note to all the businesses. After all, the meters are right in front of the business.
Right. This is
He
true.
knows most of us. So he could have dropped something off, just alerting the businesses that way. I mean, I know it's our responsibility to know, but that's a very inexpensive way, and we see the guy, he's right there, and I'm sure that would be an easy way to inform businesses of something the board is interested in doing that has an effect on business. The other area that just occurred to me is the $10 fine for violating the parking seems pretty cheap. So I was just in Saugerties and I violated the meter policy and got a $20 fine. So I'm just suggesting that people, I think in terms of money-wise, I think $10 could be looked at and that could be raised. I don't think anyone would have any big objection to that because that also encourages people to move on or pay attention to the meters. You have an efficient system for getting tickets, and it's relatively inexpensive when you get a ticket, so it's a way to generate a little more money.
We also developed maybe a link with our chamber website, because not only for our membership, but we have such influx of people that stop in for our non-members and visitors. If we can do that, then we can get the word out with the village meetings and just what's going on quicker.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Ira, and then I think we're going to move along to our meeting, being that the first item on our agenda is a discussion on parking meters.
Actually, we haven't done the consent agenda yet.
I just wanted
We
to
did.
comment. I agree with what your attorney said about notices, because listening to this gentleman say, why can't the parking man hand me a notice, whatever, my first reaction is, why can't my development get a notice when the planning board is going to talk about turning my area into a mini downtown? It's the same philosophy. I have to go find this out myself. You're going to do all of this things for the guy, and he's going to have all this special thing, and I'm going to have a mini downtown across the street from me. But like you said, I'm listening. Why can't I get special consideration? Why can't the 300 people that live in my development also? It's a tough thing. Your attorney, I just wanted to mention, he's 100% right. You can't start doing individually. It's like you got to take the responsibility yourself. Like I go to the websites, I look, or whatever. And you see, I mean, that's a responsibility. We're all grown ups. Take your own responsibility.
If one person's getting noticed, then everybody has to get noticed. That's the way it is in my business.
Right.
If I'm calling somebody as a policy, yes, I'm calling one person, I have to.
Yes.
I just have one question. What Mike meant by link with Chamber of Commerce, do you mean like a link on the website kind of thing? Okay, that's why I was asking, because I think that's a great idea. But when you said link, I didn't know if you meant just better connections or like a physical one on the website. So I wanted that for clarification.
Okay. Thank you. It's after 9 o'clock, and I would prefer to move on to our agenda. I feel like everyone has been given a chance to speak. We're starting to now get into dialogue between people, which isn't the point of public comment. So I'm going to, if no one objects, go ahead and close public comment.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'd like to adopt the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye. Why didn't you do that? All right, and now, on the agenda, our discussion on parking meters. All right. Where shall we
I have
begin?
2 pages of notes. I don't know where to begin.
Okay.
I mean, after hearing all of this, of course, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts in my head, and I think what Kathy Preston said about consistency is pretty important. Although I would thank you, because I would not have thought of that without you saying it. So I don't, because I was going to say, let's just, for the immediate time being, go to the 4 hours, since that's really the only other option as opposed to what we have currently, for the immediate sense, aside from bagging them, which...
Well, there was the other option was bagging.
Right.
Do we have enough bags?
That I don't think that's going to be the issue. But I think the main issue with the bags is that they can
Disappear.
Yeah, they can
Yeah.
disappear. They can fall off. They become litter, which is not cool either. But you know, I think these are the things we need to consider. And then maybe we talk about the immediate first, and then we can talk about a more general sense of what we can do.
Yes.
So the immediate would be moving from 1 hour to 4 hours.
Yes, or bagging the meat.
Or big. Those are our two options.
Yeah.
For how,
And we all have to
how
agree.
long? How long is the immediate?
The immediate is until we adopt a local law changing what has been the local law that was adopted in May, was it, April?
April, yeah.
Okay, so
Maybe what we could do is immediate bag the meters, because we're going to have to wait for a public hearing and have a lobby process before we can actually change anything.
Yes.
And maybe in that time we can also get that little machine sent back and forth. I don't know how long that takes to go back and forth.
Katie, are you familiar with?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, it's entirely up to the board. You're the board.
Yes.
That even if you wrote the law and even if you made an exception and had it on the September 11th meeting, you couldn't have the public hearing until September 28th-ish. So even if you approved it on the 28th and I sent it out on the 29th, even in a perfect world, you couldn't have it approved by the Secretary of State probably before November 1st. And I can, from a purely numbers point of view, can the village take that hit of not having any income generated from those? And I have no opinion one way or the other. I'm just playing devil's advocate and giving you that portion of the, it's not something we can change next week.
I think that's a good question for Nancy.
Well,
About can we take that hit?
do we have to act tonight? If we have to act tonight, we can't ask Nancy. So we could act tonight to bag the meters for 2 weeks on the assumption that we could send the meter changer device back and get it back in time to change the meters to 4 hours. So to have them bagged for 2 hours to change them to...
Right. Right now, the meter is set in terms of time to do one of two things. It can either change the meters to 1 hour, or it can change the meters to 4 hours. Right now, it is not programmed with the option to change
them to 2 hours.
But even if it were, and say we pass this amendment tonight, we can pass it, we would have to vote to set a public hearing on it, and then it would go into law. Even if we voted on it the night of the public hearing, which say was September 11th, it still wouldn't go into law. So even if, regardless of what the meter changer thing can do, we have to do something for the interim.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll do bagging for
So
2
we
weeks.
could bag for 2 weeks on the assumption that we could get the device returned by that time, then program the meters to 2 hours until we can pass the public. Can we do that?
You could have an emergency meeting next week.
We could do that as well.
You could cut that time in half, and by tomorrow we can be on the phone with the company finding out how quickly it could take. I could notify the paper by morning, and you could have an emergency meeting if you wanted to.
So can we then make a motion that we bag the meters for a period of time not to exceed 2 weeks, contingent upon our ability to receive the computerized device, allowing us then to change the meters to a 2-hour maximum?
I think we would have to pass this amendment for the second part of it. So why don't we just make the motion with the first half?
Let's do that.
I'll
So the
second.
motion then is to bag the meters for a period not to exceed 2 weeks.
Starting for tomorrow.
Effective immediately.
Effective immediately.
So it's been moved and seconded?
Yes. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay.
So that was done. Now what else do we need to do?
So-
How do we act to move the rest of the agenda?
Well, now we could either take the amendment that Sally wrote and use that. I mean, and somebody kind of threw Amy Cohen under the bus with her being part of it,
I got
but
that.
her preference was that we remove all the meters. And so I don't know what people think about that, but everyone talked about free parking, and then it would widen our sidewalks so that, like, you know, if you and I wanted to go for a walk, we could stand next to
I'm
each
not
other.
prepared to vote on anything like that at the present.
Well, I think that's what I'm saying is, do we even want to vote on this, or do we want to look at other options, and maybe after these 2 weeks extend this bagging to create something else, or do we want to go with this amendment? I mean, right? If we're here, we should think about this. Right. I don't know. Maybe all the people that were here tonight want to have a meeting.
Well, I still want to respect the 2-meeting rule. And
Yes.
not vote on something definitively at any time when it's first introduced.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying, is that we don't have to necessarily act on this tonight. We could schedule an emergency meeting for next Wednesday, if both of you are available, for one. And if we do that, we can get some answers to these questions, like what our budget looks like and how long it would take to get this device back and forth, and then basically take our next step from there. You know, and if we need to bag the meters extendedly, and Nancy says that's okay, we could at least, you know.
September 4th, you want to call an emergency meeting on September 4th?
Is that?
Sure, that's
Oh,
fine.
yeah.
You have a conflict, I saw that.
You know, Rosh Hashanah starts.
Oh, well, we can, it's an emergency meeting, we can make it Tuesday.
Well, school starts on Rosh Hashanah too, so.
Actually,
the school district
we
is.
we can do them on Thursday.
It starts on Friday.
It's an urgent.
The Friday's Rosh Hashanah?
No, Wednesday begins.
Wednesday begins, right?
We can have it
Is it
Tuesday, we
Wednesday
can have it
We can have
Monday.
it Tuesday?
2 full
We can
days,
have it
Wednesday to
Monday.
Thursday, Thursday to Friday.
Well, Monday's Labor Day, you can't do it Labor Day.
Tuesday's the
Yeah.
3rd.
Okay, Tuesday sounds fine.
Tuesday's the 3rd. We're going to have a special meeting on Tuesday.
What
hold
time?
on.
7 p.m., 8 and 7:30?
Yeah, I can do it.
7:30?
There is
We will be in
planning
the-
board here.
That's what I was gonna say, we'll be in the small room because planning
So
board will
that's
be
okay,
here.
we'll be in the small.
Okay.
I will call for the video services.
And
Do
David,
we have to pass a motion to call a special meeting?
yes. I would like
It
to
wouldn't
call a
hurt.
special meeting for
Tuesday,
Tuesday, September 3rd at 7:30 p.m.
Can I just make one little comment?
Sure.
Yeah.
Before there's hate mail to the clerk's office. I am a homeowner in the village. I shop downtown. I walk my children downtown. One of my favorite treats in the whole world is an almond tart from the bakery. So when I throw out
Those
the
are really
numbers,
good.
when I throw out the numbers, it is not that I'm throwing the business owners under the bus. I just have a responsibility to the board to say certain things. But
It's
I
purely
love
factual.
downtown. Love downtown. Live downtown. Walk downtown.
David, I have a question for you. Do you have a sense of how the business owners feel about the rate? The quarter, the 50 cents, I mean...
I think most people, I mean, Mike and a few other people probably feel like it's legitimate if you have a good reason to go higher, but I think what I heard a lot today is it's working now, and anything raising it, unless it's for some good reason, is really just punitive.
Can I ask, and this is purely for, you know, hypothetical purposes, say we did remove the meters and just created parking, and instead, because part of the issue is, I believe, tenants parking in spots that we want for customers. And then what if we did chalking of the tires? Because we don't do that at all, as far as I know.
This is only my personal.
I mean, I'm asking just for feedback,
My
you know.
personal feeling is when someone comes back and finds a ticket, if they see a meter has clicked, say they're watching and they come and they think they're on time, and they see a meter, they'll say, "Gosh, my watch is fast." If they see a ticket and it's just tires, they're thinking the guy that gave them a ticket is wrong, and they're going to be angry. So I think anything ambiguous is a little tricky. The benefit, of course, is that it's free parking. But I just think it creates more ambiguity and possible anger, which we're always trying to alleviate that.
Right.
But that's only my personal feelings.
Well, I think you've been involved in enough things that
I think it's
your
been
opinion,
working, so
you know, that's what I'm asking.
would look for a solution. So I think the way it was fine. I just as soon make it the way it was.
Okay.
Back to
I don't know if the rest of you heard my question, but I'd be happy to hear your answer. Yeah, about marking tires. I mean, the idea of removing meters and just chalking tires and have a 2-hour maximum parking, and I think what you're saying is, has a lot of truth to it, and just not charging for parking, but having a more strict 2-hour parking limit. I'm just asking for feedback, so yeah. But we can mull these things over. I accept emails.
I think, the continuity, as someone said, I thought that was, when you pointed out, it was one of the most brilliant things said today.
Yeah.
Was that you need to have some consistency.
Yes.
And especially for a visitor. They don't know.
That this isn't how it always is.
Have been centered around, but there is a parking. There's parking here, there's parking there. What does that do for the visitor? That's for the local. We know about the water treatment plant. We know about this. We know about that. But the visitor doesn't.
Right.
A central location, maybe they pay more to park in a garage, but it's there. It's central, right where the parking is now, and it would get paid for, like Ira said. And then chalking tires. If you're going to do that, you're consistent about it. I think certainly technology nowadays. Everybody's going to have a phone where they're going to go, give me a reminder in an hour and 50 minutes.
Okay, all right.
And also, if you're looking for long-term, being more open, I'm not saying you can do this right away, but if there was a device that let you not have stripes for parking spaces so that people could park as they will, like they do on non-metered places like Church Street, you'd fill an awful lot more cars. So it would be a centralized money device.
Right.
That lets the whole block park as they will. You'd fit 20, 30, 40% more cars.
Those are big now.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I have a bunch of other ideas on this, but I think that Tom just got back from vacation and drove in a horrendous storm, so I think he's a little on the exhausted side, and we did spend a lot of time. But one thing that I would just want to throw out quickly, I know you've got other notes too, but one thought is in where we do a recreation fee as part of our planning process, is to have a parking lot fee built into different things and have a parking lot reserve fund for something like a building or another lot or what have you. So, but that's something we can talk about another time. So the 4th, the meeting for the parking? Yes.
And is that a public thing or that's just?
Public meeting, yes.
The 3rd.
The 3rd, I'm sorry.
Next Tuesday.
Tuesday.
The 3rd. Tuesday the 3rd.
Not Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
Okay, 7:30.
All right, so the next item on our agenda is discussion on the July 24th decision of the Board of Trustees to convert the Village Hall heating system from oil to natural gas. And Joe, we had asked your opinion on whether or not the 3 of us could vote to rescind that motion.
I think that this is a decision like most decisions of this legislative body that would require a majority, a simple majority vote. As I believe I indicated in an email communication, there might be practical complications had the board actually signed a contract or the mayor actually signed a contract, because now you'd have to extricate yourself from the contract. But even then, the actions of the board require a majority vote. I don't think it matters which majority that is.
Okay.
And so I think if you want to act on it, you can.
How do you feel, Tom?
Okay.
No, well, the way I feel about it is that we have this on as a discussion item, so I'm happy to discuss it. I'm not happy to vote on it tonight, although I would be more than open to having more than a discussion at the next board meeting, at which I believe there would be a 4th member of our board, if not the 5th member.
Do you mean the meeting on the 11th?
I guess
Yes.
whenever is the next
Isn't that our designated water meeting?
Could we agree possibly to have it on as a consent agenda item? How would you
I
feel
mean,
about
that would be great in my opinion.
Just because...
Yeah, I don't think that would work.
No, you think we're going to need a discussion?
Yeah, I think we'll need a discussion. Yeah, I'm not ready to abandon the notion.
Okay.
I know that they're.
All right,
Okay.
so we'll table it.
Okay.
Well, I did have something that was added to the packet regarding going out, the idea of us getting an energy audit done.
Yes.
Yes.
Which we can move on that tonight.
Katie's already sent out to the.
I'm actually just responding to Blue, who said that Nancy handled all of the things with the machine. I texted him quickly just to ask, did he have an idea of the turnaround time, just to be able to give you a better answer.
Great. Oh, wow, cool.
I did call all 3 companies that Ariana emailed me about the energy audit. One is actually coming on September 11th to kind of do a preliminary look with Blue Terwilliger. 2 still have to get back to me. If you, whatever action you want to take, we have at least made preliminary phone calls. And also, as Mr. Gunther had requested when he talked about the thermostats, I did ask Blue if we could install a motion detector, and he said, yes, we could install one, but that's a very bad idea because there isn't a lot of traffic up here during the day. If the thermostat wasn't warm enough, we could have pipes freeze. He would suggest a programmable thermostat, so it was still using more efficient energy, but keeping us from having a major problem later.
Do we have any idea if this is programmable?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't see anything on it that looks programmed.
Like a timer.
No, those are just buttons. Yeah, so I think that would be, you know.
Okay. So we'll wait until we get the.
Motion sensor. Yeah, I mean, I think
By
we
the way,
should
I'm
just.
fully in favor of an energy audit, and I would be happy to have that information as a basis for making a decision.
Cool. Should we make a motion to, like, go out to bid for a Flex Tech energy audit, because that's what we would need for this building? Or, because I know we started making phone calls, but I mean, that's not a money expenditure type thing. Do we want to officially say that we'd like to get bids on this?
Joe, what do you
think we have to officially say that we'd like to get requests for bids for a Flex Tech energy audit?
Yeah, I think you should.
Okay. Do we want to just generally go out to bid like we would for anything, or do we want to just have a request for proposal from these specific places, which we know do the Flex Tech audit, and I think they also work with NYSERDA. Certainly the ones that Pat Courtney Strong said do work with NYSERDA.
I think that's just a policy decision. I mean,
right.
If that, I think you could approach it either way.
Great.
Do you have any feelings about that? I would be open to going with these 3 companies
to get
if
bids.
there's no either legal or structural reason not to.
Okay. So I would like to make a motion to request proposals from the companies that were listed in this email: Integral Building and Design, L&S Energy Services, and Daylight Savings.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Next item on our agenda, I believe local law on the in connection with short-term rentals. Joe, did you want to?
Yeah, well, as I explained when I transmitted this, the approach taken in the proposed law is to provide regulation. Number one, provide a definition for what has become, sort of a modern use of property, right? 30 years ago, codes didn't have a definition for this. Now we probably should have it. So one, it provides a definition. 2, it makes short-term rentals a special permit in all residential districts except the historic district. The idea being that by making it a special permit, it will necessarily provide the ability of the planning board to consider whether there's any special circumstances in that particular property or in that neighborhood, and apply appropriate conditions. So in other words, a special permit, as you know, is a permitted use, but one as to which you think you want to have certain kinds of controls. The one I always use as an example is a kennel. So you say it's okay to have a kennel in this district, but it's going to be a special permit because we want to be able to regulate things like noise and et cetera, et cetera. So for instance, the planning board could take into account what is the impact of parking in those districts. However, what I believe the general direction or sense that I got as a consensus of the board, and certainly the public opinion, was that in the historic district in particular, it is simply an incompatible use. And that there would be specific language that would prohibit it. All of these things are, up for debate in terms of, tweaking the approach. But these approaches are direct. They give you the opportunity, like an overlay district would, to review and consider this use in other residential areas, but without the complications that I believe an overlay district adds legally and environmentally. And it also addresses directly and immediately any lack of clarity as to whether it's permitted in the historic district. One of the things the board needs to think about in terms of the definition is, I have proposed, and this is after doing research on various laws throughout the country and model ordinances and input from neighbors, et cetera, I've suggested that the definition of short-term rental be anything less than 60 days. It seems to me somebody staying longer than that is not renting it for a vacation. It may be a relative, it may be a friend, it may be a boarder you're taking in because they've fallen on hard times, etc. And again, none of this would matter in the historic district. It wouldn't matter. It just wouldn't be permitted. But you want to discuss what a short-term rental is, and then you obviously want to discuss the approach in these two districts. You'd need to get an opinion back from county planning and from your own planning board. But beyond that, you'd be able to act relatively quickly. I do also want to say, for public benefit, not just the people here tonight, but also people in the audience, as I've explained, I believe our code already, when read properly, so to speak, prohibits this use in the historic district anyway. The reason I think that's so is that as a general proposition in zoning law, if something is not permitted, it's prohibited. And in this case, I think this is a sufficiently distinct type of use that unless it is specifically permitted, I think it's prohibited. That, of course, is something to which the owner of 105 Huguenot Street may take exception. And that's a different conversation, one that should not be had publicly because it involves litigation or potential litigation. But anyway, that is the general idea of this law, and if you give me some direction tonight, we could start to put it on pace for action.
Planning board and... Right. Okay.
And I will also say, by the way, there is a typo here. There's two, I'm embarrassed to say. If you look, let me walk through the law and tell you what you're looking at. 212.5 would add short-term rental as a definition. 212.13A3, just so you know what that's amending, that is your R1 district. And what that is doing is adding, because it's not very self-explanatory when you just look at this bare bones law, but what you're doing is adding a new special permit called short-term rental. So that would be in your R1 zone. In your R2 zone, that same language would be added. It's different because it's just a different list. A new section would make a special permit use there in R2. And then R3 is 212.13C. That's an error.
Okay, not
so
K.
In other words, I doubled up on B there, and I apologize. So that is actually C, and that's your R3 zone.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. 212-13, and then C.
Correct, right.
Got it.
And I'll recirculate this, obviously. Okay. Now, 212.13D is amended to add C section 212.29. Now, this is going to come out. I did it because initially 212.29 used to be a provision of your code that dealt specifically with the historic district. Like
Okay.
the special regulations in the historic district. It's since been repealed, and when I initially envisioned this, I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll just add it, we'll add back 21229. I then changed my mind, it was just cleaner to do it this way, and forgot to take this out. So,
Okay.
yeah, I apologize, but that is coming out.
Both of the C sections?
Both of the 21229 sections will come out, they're just not relevant anymore.
Okay.
There's nothing there, there's nothing in 21229. Okay, I mean, and that's it, so that's what you're looking at.
Okay. So,
On the most basic level, what you might want to do is if you're comfortable with it as a draft,
yes.
we would get it circulated
Sure.
so that you can get it on, hopefully, your late September agenda. But it's up to you.
So I'm actually not comfortable with the part that makes it a special use permit in other residential areas, and I'm willing to have my mind changed. But part of how I see it is that, and this is how I'm thinking about it more generally speaking, is the idea that if this is my permanent residence and I live here, you know, and we've talked about this, 50 weeks of the year, and if I have somebody rent it for 2, my neighbor Tom can say to me, you know, those are awful renters. Like, can you really screen these people? So I think that's one piece of it that maybe we can find a way to just.
In the other districts.
Yeah, well, in other districts, have it be something where, you know, people who, because I think we're kind of, you know, I mean, there have been many people who have come to speak to us about the idea that this is how some people make ends meet, and we should not limit their ability to do this because they own their properties.
Well, and it's a great comment, and let me be very clear. What I proposed here was responsive to the notion that you might want to regulate it in other residential districts, but as I said on the record, and as other members of the board and the public have said, and in my email communication to you, there's no question that there are economic implications here, and you might, I would certainly not discourage you if it was the general will of the board from going a different way. It may be that this is an appropriate, you deem it an appropriate thing in these other districts.
I mean, and I don't know how either of you feel about that, but that's one half of why I think that. But the other piece is, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. It was about the same idea of a special use permit. The residency. Well, I was thinking about that as we were speaking. You know, the effort that it would take to get a special use permit, and that people. I have notes. What did it say? Someone's primary residence. It'll come back to me.
Well, that one issue, though, is I believe, a rather important one. That is to say that people who are homeowners live in their home, no question about that, but once a year or twice a year do a home swap with somebody in Paris or Ocean City or wherever you happen to be going, would now have to get a special use, if not now, but if we did this. And I think that's an excessive burden that, I don't know if it has constitutional implications, but it's a restriction on the right of persons who own their own property, which I think might be excessive.
And what I will note too is that I think if that becomes a consensus of the board, I don't think that that's just a matter of how we approach that issue. In other words, even the idea of an overlay district, any sort of regulation implicates that burden, and I'm acutely aware of it, so I don't want to discourage that line of thinking.
Right. Well, I'm not opposed at all to having regulations that restrict certain kinds of behavior. All regulations, every regulation restricts behavior.
Right.
So I'm not opposed to having regulations.
But now, what we have here, in reading it, to me, it just appears that we were adding that definition into the other districts. But this is
a special use permit.
Right.
Where does it say as a special?
Because in each of
It's the section that it's under.
Yeah. For instance, when it says 212.13.8.3 is amended, what 212.13.8.3 is the list under R1 of special permit uses.
Right.
So simply by adding this in the list, L, short-term rental, you would make short-term rental special permit use
Automatically,
there. So
okay.
anybody who wanted to do it would have to get a special permit.
Okay.
And as I said, even if you were to change the concept to let's do an overlay district, let's do it, you're still going to have the same issues of regulations. In fact, I think you add an extra level because now someone's got to make an application for an overlay district and then do all their justification. I think it's nuts. So that's how this is addressed.
Okay, so I'm thinking, I agree as well with having the need for the special use permits in all of the other areas.
You do believe that we should do that?
No, I don't think.
You don't believe
I don't
it.
think
Okay.
we should have a special use permit
Yeah.
required. But how do you feel?
No, I do not with that, for that kind of short-term rental. If you're running a hotel, then it shouldn't be called a hotel.
Right.
We should know, there has to be a way to know that an establishment is renting rooms, let's hope by the day, and that causes that establishment not to be a home, but to be a place of business which is making its money by short-term rentals. There must be a way for us to know that. You don't have to go whole hog in order to protect the rights of people who do short-term rentals of the sort I've mentioned. Once a year, twice a year, they have people come and stay at their home while they go stay someplace else. So I think that we can devise a definition that makes clear that short-term rentals of a certain sort establish a business of a certain sort, and that short-term rentals of another sort do not.
I think the key there.
How do we do that? We need to devise definitions carefully.
Well, I think the key there is whether or not it's the homeowner's primary residence.
Yes, and
I think
that's a key factor.
that is the way to do it. And the other piece that I had forgotten before that I remembered afterwards was that it should, whatever the short-term rental is, must also adhere to what the zone regulates. Because I think one of the main issues here is that we have a one-family house that's being rented in a way that is not one family. And had it maybe been just the one family where it was, like me and my parents, and we're not partying all night, and even if we are, we're still just three people.
Or me and my kids.
Right. Well, I don't have kids, so
No, but I'm just saying
technically I
that
don't kind of have
rental,
kids,
that-
but
where it is a family renting a home.
but right, exactly. Where it's really just, it's not some kind of situation where you have the amount of people parking that you've had. And I think if that's the case, then this might not even been a real issue. If people were quieter about it, it wouldn't have caused the kind of disturbance. And I think that's the heart of the matter, is the disturbance.
Those are both excellent points, Tom and Ariana, and I think I can go to the drawing board on those specific types of regulations, which may be a better approach.
So then could we defer further action on this until we get further input from our attorney?
A second draft, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds fine.
How does the board feel about the historic district?
I think that the action that you proposed about the historic district, I think.
Okay, so just so
I believe we're all in favor of
Yes.
already. So
Very
we
good.
just leave that.
I will turn it around very quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Still working on it. Yes.
So we have a
But soon.
We have a representative of DEP.
Yes, I know. That's next.
Actually, you have number 10 is going back to the approval for the village engineer, the bids.
Okay.
So how do we work in Dave Kakmo with this without getting, because this is what he's talking about, the street.
Yeah,
planning,
right.
Because I think we should make that part of our
Yeah.
motion, but I don't know in terms of, thank you, all right, bye, good night, in terms of, whether or not this company's willing to
Yes.
work with him, maybe we should get some feedback on that first? I know we have to act on this, though.
Wait. This is a volunteer action on his
Yes.
part.
Yes.
We don't have to, I don't think we have to do anything. I myself don't think we have to do anything. If we have people who are ready and willing to work, we can make part of a conversation with them
Yes.
about whether they're ready and willing to work with a volunteer who happens to be an expert. And if they are ready and willing to work with that person, then we can take that into consideration in making our choice.
Yeah, sure.
But
Well, then does that mean we don't take action tonight and we check with them first? Or does that mean we take action tonight, check with
What action do
them,
we
and
need to take tonight? We're going out to
we
bid.
need to award the bids?
We need to
Award it.
award the bid.
Basically, what we would need to do is authorize me to sign them so that they can move forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then forget what I said.
Well, yeah. That's why I'm saying, should we make, because I think we should totally accept his offer.
Yeah.
I mean, especially
Yes.
considering that he
Yes.
has been so involved, you know.
Yeah.
But if we have to make an award the bid tonight, then we don't have an opportunity
To discuss this with-
discuss it
right,
them. So we have
exactly.
to make the award and then assume that we'll be persuasive in our discussion.
I agree.
But
Okay.
you don't,
So, would anyone mind if we went ahead and put the DEP in front of the,
Yeah, why don't
bid?
we
Yeah.
have Dan up here
Would
first?
you please come closer at least?
That's what I was going to do anyway.
Would you say who you are?
Dan Mashad from DEP, New York City DEP.
Hello.
He's been here
It's a
since
good night to
7.
come. I know everything now about parking meters.
Right.
Can I just take one
Please
moment? I asked that this be put on the agenda. It was not on the originally published agenda. It was added because I wanted it to be a public matter, that there are ongoing discussions with our engineers, with the town of New Paltz, with their engineers, with DEP, and so forth, about what needs to be done to move us from our current situation, which is had achieved a kind of stasis. We weren't going anywhere, even though the time for making decisions is shortening every day. Sooner or later, probably sometime in mid-2016, there will be a preliminary shutdown
Fall
of the
2016. Right.
of the aqueduct. And then in 2017, the reason for all of this, that is the repair work on the aqueduct, begins. And we rely for about 70% of our water on the aqueduct, 70% or more at various times.
Right.
So we need to have decisions made about what sources of water we would use in the interim during these shutdown periods. And potentially, if we discover sources of water that would satisfy all of our needs in the interim, whether those sources of water would be permanent for us and would reduce or eliminate our immediate dependence on DEP, although we would never give up our relationship to DEP as a provider of, if not last resort, next resort.
Or primary.
Or primary, if we need.
We love our customers. You know.
Whenever we need.
We're not suggesting that.
So we've had a couple of chats over the telephone, and I thought it would be appropriate.
And you're on our agenda in
On
2
the
weeks,
11th,
right?
On the
right.
11th.
Right. So on the 11th, we'll be we accepted an offer to come and speak to the entire board. We'll probably bring a small presentation in mid-2012 because of our ongoing discussions with the mayor, the village engineer, and superintendent on the issue of backwater supply. It got to a point where we collectively decided that there might be some local options, as Tom has mentioned, and DEP DEP at that point offered to do a groundwater and surface water local alternative study. In mid-2012, we started and implemented that. There was a meeting with the mayor. He agreed to that. We just wrote a letter saying we're starting. We completed that over the winter. And earlier this spring, we completed the study. And that you have. We are delighted that you all have a copy of the study. We realize you've just gotten that, so you're probably still reading it, in your spare time. I know it's quite an interesting read. But we completed that earlier this year, and we met, I think, in July with Mayor West and Mr. Larios, the engineer. And at that point, we walked them through the study and asked that they brief the board. They agreed at that point to come back to us with some concepts about maybe moving that forward to a second study to further vet some of these options. And I think it was on the 14th of August, Tom, as representative of the village, came to Kingston with Mr. Larios and Mr. Williger and kind of walk through.
There were four of us, excuse me for interrupting. There were four of us who were representing the village. The mayor asked that, or either the mayor asked me directly, I don't remember, or he asked me through Blue that I attend in his place. So I went up to Kingston and we had I thought, an extremely productive,
very productive
meeting at DEP.
And from that point forward, we're delighted that the full board is engaged, that, we have what's potentially the suite of potentially good options. And, we've talked about potentially partnering with the village to assist in implementing a phase 2 assessment. We're open to that and agreeable to that. The proposal was delivered to us at that time on the 14th, and we've received the proposal. I guess what I'm prepared to say tonight is, although we're grateful to have it, I think we'd like to see maybe a couple other proposals or one, whatever the village process dictates to have what would qualify as an open and competitive qualification-based proposal to you. We would encourage, engaging a couple. It is a specialized hydrogeologic effort, so we would encourage, getting some people that are experienced in this local knowledge to get in front of you with a proposal that may spur some creativity and some real other options and different ways of looking at it, and of course would give you a better cost. And we're here for helping in that and being present for that. But I think that's where we're at. We'd like to see that happen in the near term.
I could put some brevity maybe and say that it appears that what we need is something more and something less grandiose than the phase 2 proposal that we've received. And so we've critiqued phase 2 proposal, and we would now look for additional explorations of wells, test wells, gravel wells that would provide us with a sufficient indication of a sufficient flow of not just not bad water, but good potable water. But to find those, we need to have the next phase of exploration. There is a team that has done some explorations, and we know the people in that team very well. Dave Klaus is one of them. We know that our other engineer, Larios, has done other work in this area as well. I have spoken to both of them, and they have now spoken with each other about ways in which we can come up with a next phase, or I don't know if we're calling it phase 3, phase something, a new proposal. We just need to know what is our procurement policy. How do we procure a new proposal from these parties, or do we go out and we just do a new RFP? Do we have to do a new RFP, not unlike what we were discussing a few moments ago?
Right.
But can we do that in an expedited way? So I need help. Can we do that in an expedited way that would allow us to have RFP go out for us to receive proposals in, consider those proposals, make a judgment and a choice, and still not lose the fall season for these explorations?
Right.
Very field intensive, and it costs about double if you have to do it when there's ice and snow.
Right.
Right.
So you're gonna lose a lot of dollars.
So can we do that?
I mean, I guess my question is, how much do we have to change the current proposal?
There needs to be explorations that have not been done.
But can we change the current proposal to just include more sites, and can we get a group of people together? Because I mean, I was talking to Rachel Lagatka about this, and she said, "Well, you know where the water is, right? It's up on, on the near the thruway, essentially." And I was like, well, I don't know where the water is, and I think that's the whole.
That's the purpose of the study.
Yeah, exactly.
We'd have to say to Rachel, wait a minute, Rachel. We need a hydrogeologist for this.
Well, I think she's speaking from a point of view where there was research done in this very thing. So I think should we get, like Sally mentioned, I think it was at the last meeting we had, the idea of getting together some people who do have knowledge of our community and asking them about the history of properties, and and this might be a way longer process than what we have time for, but maybe not. Maybe it's asking a handful of people this kind of question and then putting those sites on a list.
We have knowledge.
Just trying to get creative here.
You're actually there is knowledge that can be tapped about sources. Explorations, right? Test wells that have been dug in various places, including on the upper end of Paradise.
Exactly.
Across.
Yeah.
So, but we do know that. But we also know that there's a reason why they haven't been
tapped into.
Right. Because there are issues with each of them. So I think what we would hope we would get now would be test wells that would provide us with an indication of a sufficient flow of really good water that could, if we're lucky, because we still have to be lucky.
Sure.
If we're lucky, provide a sufficient flow of water to make it really worthwhile to develop those wells at the expense of DEP. DEP is, we're not going to pay for this.
We should also look at there's hydrogeological reports in the FEIS, in the draft FEIS for the Park Point project, and they have drilled wells, and they are going to have sufficient amount of water for their complex at the very least. And so I think, I don't know where else they looked at or where else they drilled wells, but we could at least use that to know maybe where not to go, because since where we can go, they are already.
They certainly found water of a different type. If you read our, in our conclusions, it focuses more towards downtown, just over the bridge area.
Right on the other side,
Yeah, we'll give you some maps and we'll show you kind of what our consultant concluded. They certainly found water on the east side of town. The distinction being that it's bedrock formation water, so you have deep rock wells over gravel formation wells, which are generally higher producers and easier to predict yield.
And that's what we could have by the county fairgrounds and on Springtown, and that's where those were the locations.
The objective is
not to dismiss what's on these sites. I mean, any little piece helps. There might be something over there that you can use.
Well, I think that's exactly
what we'd like to have. I think is a proposal that would include all of the likely places for us to find water that would then belong to us over the long run. over which we would have control
Right.
for the lawn.
And so it seems to me that since the town seems fairly willing to do some kind of collaborative joint project on this, and all the places we even listed here tonight are in the town, we're going to obviously have to have their cooperation.
Not necessarily. They're not necessarily in the town. The village owns some places along the river. That
We do,
might admit
yes.
and I would suggest that we want to make certain that we tap into village sources. I would not be willing to concede to only town, even though
I don't think we should do only town.
I would be very
but
happy
yeah.
to collaborate with town. I don't want anyone to think otherwise.
So
I would be very happy to collaborate with the town, but I would be very very happier to discover sources of water on, not just publicly owned, but village-owned property.
So we're supposed to have this meeting regarding water on September 11th.
Yes.
So do we think that we could come up with a list at least between now and then and be able to use much of, the RFP that we already have?
Right now, we don't have an RFP.
Oh, when you were saying something before, it sounded like we had something we could tweak.
We have a proposal for phase 2 development.
Right.
Phase 2 proposal.
And you have of course.
But that's
our
different
report.
from what we're.
So we have the DEP
Our report
report
is a basis
and the
for an
Larios
RFP.
report.
Right.
You could refer to our report
So
as.
this is the Larios report.
Right.
We all
Which you
got
have,
those,
right,
yeah.
Which everybody has. So this emphasizes reservoirs over wells. And what we need now is a further exploration of the opportunities that we have for gravel wells.
Right.
Okay.
And we've indicated that we wouldn't be interested in funding a study on reservoir development. Wells and surface water, yes, but.
Yeah. So, can we do it between now and, can we get it all done between now and October? Get it all done. So can we know what we're asking people to do? Get the bid or get the word out. Even if we only got it out to Larios and Clauser, or do we have to get it out more broadly than that? Can we get the input back, their proposals to act, and then can we make a judgment to go between now and then?
Well, I think, certainly I think we should begin drafting this RFP, whether or not this is an appendix to it or a cover to it, either one. I don't know how long this RFP needs to be. In short, yeah? Okay.
I think
because we have all of this other information.
You have the DEP
Yeah.
report as a reference document in your library now, so that could be referenced in an RFP, which could be rather short, and seek proposals from qualified firms, with local knowledge. That would spur the open competitive environment we'd like to see as related to the funding that we're going to be offering. I don't know what the village process is to get to the point of accepting a proposal and doing an interview. You'd want to see their presentation in front of the board for these qualified firms so that you know who you're hiring, obviously. I don't know if that's part of the process, and I leave it to you, but it's very typically the process. And if it's within a couple weeks for every one of those trigger points, it would be, worthwhile exploring your process and figuring out how to do it. Again, I don't want to dictate that. My message is, we'd like to see as part of our funding some more open,
something competitive.
Couple proposals, two proposals or more, whatever you guys deem appropriate.
Our procurement policy says 3 proposals. And there's definitely funding attached to it, like monetary amounts and things. But so I think at least 3 is what we'll be looking at. And we often don't do face-to-face interviews for these kinds of things. We get written proposals. We can look at it all at once. And I'm open, but I think expediting the process is the best, yeah.
Let me see if I understand what you said before. We have the DEP report.
Right, you have our report.
We have that report. That report can be, if you want, attached either
reference to that.
virtually or in some other way.
Or you could make it available here
We could make it available.
during viewing hours, right?
But we could attach it.
If it is attachable, sure.
And
Yeah.
we would have a draft, or we would have an RFP that would go out, say, please review the attached materials. These are, the RFP would say what our objectives are, and say, please submit.
By a certain date.
By a certain date. And that date, it would not be absurd for that date to be in the relatively near future?
I don't think so.
Because we want to get this done.
Yes.
Sure. And, right, and the board would consider the proposals, consider whether you interview or not, and
Okay.
then get to a contract and selection, hopefully.
So I would volunteer to work with Dan and to get the input of both Dennis Larios and Dave Clauser and any of our other personnel. Do I need to get input from Blue, for example, or is that excessive?
I don't think it's excessive, but one person I think who I actually had also asked Katie to invite to the meeting on the 11th is Chris Yeager.
Chris, I know Chris, I would be happy.
Yeah, I would recommend.
And for legal reasons, Joe should be involved in the drafting of it.
Who?
Joe. That guy right there.
And Vernier and Larios will know if and when they might need some input from Blue, so if you're working with them, I think
Right.
they're fine.
Okay.
They'll also
Yeah.
circulate, they'll do the same with me. You know, they'll
Right.
just have them copy me on things. They know how to coordinate this effort.
Sounds good.
Joe, Ariel, Dennis, Mario, Chris.
Yeager.
J-A.
So if I could ask, what is the posting period for the village? When you post an RFP, you have to do it in paper, or you can seek proposals, but how long do you have to leave it open?
I'd actually defer to Joe for that.
I don't think we have a legal, there's nothing that legally binds us. I think it's basically within the motion that is made. We set a date that we have the proposals in by.
So could we do this could we put this on the agenda of the 11th?
I think we absolutely should.
Yes.
It's a matter of whether or not we get it all together in time.
Yeah.
But I think that should be the goal, and then everybody will
yes.
probably get it together by then.
Also because that meeting has been specifically designated
Right.
for this
For water,
topic.
yeah.
So, and all the
Okay.
needed parties will be here anyway.
Yeah,
So we
so
need
we're
to-
not gonna have a 2-hour public comment period on parking that night.
I learned a lot about impulse. Good things.
It was all your fault.
I frequent all those businesses too, so this is good.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, well, see, the funny thing is she and I don't drive, so it's like,
Yeah.
we don't ever have to park. So I'm babysitting Kathy's shop, and David walks in with this letter, and he said, well, it's to you. And I'm like, I didn't even know these things
Right.
had taken effect. It's like, okay.
Well, when we were drafting the whole thing, I don't drive, and Sally lives walking distance. We said to the other people who were working with us, we're like, we really are going to defer to you here because we
Yeah.
don't drive. But,
More bike racks are out there.
yeah, I do want more bike racks, but there's a call for
Do
that
you
too.
know that there's a recent study that of, 15 to 20-year-olds where not very long ago, like 90% of people over the age, whatever it was, up to a year, now it's dropped down to below 80%.
Do what?
Those who drive.
Oh, yeah.
Kids getting permits,
so-
like at 16.
Right.
It's, if you want, from a historical point of view, it's plummeted.
I read an article about that also, and it was associated with the fact that people are so attached to their technology. They're like, well, I can't drive and text or look things up online, so I'm going to take a bus.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating.
All right.
The road is changing.
Right, but
Okay.
all besides the point.
So we'll see. I'll be in touch with you ASAP, and you and I will have to set time aside. And as I said, I've already been in touch with Dennis and Dave, not that they know that we're doing this, but I think that they suspect that we'll be doing something like this.
This would be a village action, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want us to make a motion that we're moving this forward?
But shall we?
I'm happy to, you know.
Make a motion to authorize Tom, Joe, Dave Clauser, Bruno, and Larios to, along with Chris Yeager, to draft an RFP seeking, what would it be, a firm to conduct well studies?
Phase 2 assessment for
Phase two
backup water supply
assessment.
options, I'd keep it
There you go.
Phase 2 assessment for backup water supply
for
options.
the village.
Cool.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Awesome.
Am I released?
You're related.
Yeah.
Everybody always says that when they do.
Yeah.
Thanks. Nice to meet you.
All right. Okay, so I believe the only item left is the approval of the recommendation of village engineers of bids, including bid edition 1 and 2. That looks like it.
The blood drive.
The blood drive.
Oh, the blood
Oh,
drive.
didn't we put that into consent?
I thought we put it into consent agenda.
I thought we did too.
Yeah, we moved,
Yeah.
I moved it up to,
Consent.
as item 12, but I moved it up into the consent
Yeah.
agenda on my agenda.
Yes, I did too.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my proposal.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 So I think, you know, we should definitely, you know, approve the bids. Obviously, I'm in favor of doing that. And we should make it not to exceed.
The total,
The
which
total,
is
it was
95. I just added it up.
I thought I made a little
Somewhere.
note on here.
Where did I add it up?
Oh, I know where I made the note. In the first.
You know
page.
what? We could just
Here,
say
I've got it. I've got the number.
So-
Let me do it.
95,860.
What is that look like?
Okay.
Bid not to exceed.
Yes, and someone want to authorize me to sign them?
Well, and say something about David Kokomo. Are these three separate motions or?
Oh,
I would think they.
no. Yeah? Oh, okay. So,
Award the bid to, what is their name?
Rowers Construction.
Roars Construction, including bid edition number 1 and bid edition number 2, not to exceed the 95,860. And to approve the offer of David Kokomo.
For volunteer assistance.
Yes.
In rock placement,
Setting stones.
setting stone. That sounds good.
And to also authorize, should this be all one motion?
I think it could
Yeah,
be.
and to also authorize Deputy Mayor Rotzler.
To sign the contracts.
Yes.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Is our meeting over? Oh, no, executive
session.
Never mind. So, can we get him on an agenda?
Sure.
Maybe the
Whatever
last meeting in,
last meeting in September?
yes.
Yeah. What's
Okay.
the, I mean, I know
It's
you
the
made your,
The Viridian.
okay.
I'd like to get a formal vote before the board. I am going to be presenting, hopefully, for the New Paltz Community Foundation on September 11th at their meeting.
Oh, cool.
I'd like to get them involved with the residual fundraising program, which will really pound the positive impact Viridian can have for the village. I'd like to get more in detail with that when I get the opportunity to be on an agenda.
Absolutely.
Meantime, I'm really soaking this in. I don't know what I've been missing all these years, but I need to be at these meetings all the time.
Maybe you should join the Environmental Policy Board.
Yeah, definitely.
Newly enacted.
Well, soon to be enacted. I definitely, you believe me, you're on my list.
Cool.
Yeah.
That'll teach you. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's great. Why not, you know?
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Glad you're interested.
I'll be on the phone with you this week, I promise.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right,
Take care.
To go into executive session, we have both personnel and actual or potential litigation matters
To discuss.
to discuss, and a real estate matter.
Okay.
So just so we're fully disclosed as to the types
Yes.
of things we're discussing.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so 10:12.